Welcome, men. Happy Tuesday here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. In front of me, Carlene Bragg.
Hi.
Carlene is back.
I returned.
Well, you were back this morning, but you're back for the afternoon show.
I'm back here in the afternoon.
Full day back.
Full day.
Was in Martinsville. I don't know if you mind me saying that.
Oh, I don't mind.
Okay, Martinsville.
Eating my hot dogs, watching the race.
She showed me a picture of the line to get the hot dog. And I think you showed me the hot dog after you got the hot dog.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, it's a long line, but it's worth it.
I pointed this out to Carlene, and I'm not trying to rub salt in the wound, but she almost had a perfect weekend.
I almost pitched a perfect game. You know what I mean? I was so close. So close.
So she went to Martinsville.
Sure did.
Got the hot dog. Mm-hmm. It was a great race.
Great race.
Her Bills won.
I did. They did.
Her Bills won. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I have nothing to say. No bad words.
No bad blood here.
Nothing. No bad blood. It was a good game. Well, it was a good game for y'all.
Yep.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
However, As if you listen to the afternoon show, I mention this from time to time. Carlene is a proud graduate of the University of South Carolina.
Go Cox.
In Columbia, South Carolina. And there was a big game in Columbia, South Carolina
Was.
Saturday against Bama. Roll Tide. I'm not saying that to. I don't root for Bama.
Sure.
I'd say Roll Tide just to kind of give people an idea.
Right. So
Comeback
close.
win. It was a comeback win. It was a heartbreaker.
It was heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking.
Oh man. Well, it's kind of a win for you because you didn't like go out of your way to go to the game. And
No,
get
I had plans to go,
Yeah.
and then I kind of had to back out a little bit last minute, and I'm like kind of glad that I didn't.
I'm glad you didn't either because I don't know what Carlene
That would
would
have been
got this week.
heartbreaking to be there, and I had friends that were there, and they were like, it was tough. It was a tough day leaving the stadium.
And
Williams
the
Rice
last-
just kind of deflated.
And it was like last year was a tight game too.
Yeah.
And this year was a tight game. Like Carolina, like I was watching the game and I was like, they're gonna do
They're
it.
gonna do it.
They're
I
going
know.
to do it.
People from all over texted me. They're like, "Go Cox! Oh my God!" And then they're like, "Never mind, my bad."
I didn't even go to the University of South Carolina. I
You're
was like,
pulling for 'em.
I was pulling for them.
Yeah.
It's like they can do it.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
They didn't. They did not.
They didn't. Man, heartbreaker. But overall, Carlene, I say all this to say Carlene is back.
I'm back.
She's back.
Had a
She's in
great
good spirits.
weekend.
Great weekend overall.
Yep.
Not so. Well, here are two sides of the coin here, right? So
Sure.
cold, wet outside, not
Downright
ideal.
gross.
You know, you're trying to find motivation to do anything. You're not gonna find it.
Nope.
However, we need the rain. We've been very
Sure.
dry, so I'm trying to give you sort of what's going through.
Yeah, we got rain, but then the rain and the cold, and now it's
Yeah.
bitter cold and it's
Yeah.
gross.
And is
you
it
know.
that cold or was summer that hot?
I think it's that cold because it changed so quickly. We
Yeah.
were talking about 80-degree temperatures. What, last week?
We were living a life last week.
Yeah, and now we're like, oh my God, 50 degrees seems far away,
Bundled up.
right?
I'm tempted to put my heat on, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do
No,
it.
don't do it yet.
But let's check in with our full forecast with meteorologist Becca Birdsall.
And now this is day 2 of dreary weather. Not only is it cloudy and it's rainy, but it's also chilly as well. So you not only need that umbrella, but you'll also want that jacket as you step outdoors. Many of us in the 30s in the high country, 40s and 50s everywhere else. But when you combine that with wind gusts 25 to upwards of 30 miles per hour at times, feels like 42 right now in Charlotte. 40 in Statesville feels like the lower to middle 30s out towards the high country. So that is what you'll want to dress like. Our official high temperature today was this morning, 51 degrees. It's actually not a record for the coolest high temperature. It actually ranks number 2, which is just behind 49 degrees. Doppler radar, here's what we're tracking now. We've got just widespread consistent rain all across the greater Charlotte area, but notice drier for the mountains and also for our most southeastern counties. So rain chances will actually continue to taper off going into the rest of today. You can still expect clouds, areas of patchy light rain, drizzly conditions, and it's still going to be chilly, but just not nearly as wet. So if you're headed off to the big Charlotte FC playoff match versus New York, begins at 6:45, may just want to bring that poncho with you. We've got one more day really of wet weather before we start to see some drying conditions by Thursday morning, and we'll continue that into your weekend as well. So timing this out for you on this futurecast for today, some patchy light rain will continue, but really starting to see a drying trend going towards this evening. And then as we fast forward into Wednesday, some more rain likely popping up around lunchtime, but the majority of this action will be west of 77. The mountains really getting hammered with pockets of moderate to heavy rainfall at times. This continues Wednesday night through early Thursday morning. By around lunchtime, we'll start to see a clearing trend, just a few isolated showers for the high country. That means once this clears out, we've got a really nice Halloween weekend ahead. Tons of sunshine beginning Friday. We will certainly have some cooler mornings, starting off in the upper 30s to lower 40s, but looking really nice for this upcoming weekend ahead. Checking in on the tropics now, Hurricane Melissa, the eye wall starting to come on shore. Landfall is imminent with this, but the definition of landfall is the center of the eye has to be passing over the coast of Jamaica. So we're a couple of miles away from that. that, but it's the eye wall that has the most intense winds that sustained 185 miles per hour. That is a strong Category 5 with gusts 220. Combine that not only with the destructive winds, we've got life-threatening storm surge and feet of rain. This is just going to bring catastrophic impacts to the western half of Jamaica, to the whole island. In fact, this will continue to cross over Jamaica and eventually make a second landfall as a major hurricane towards Cuba, having the chance to make a third landfall towards southeastern Bahamas, still as a hurricane, with Bermuda also in the code going into Thursday night and early Friday morning. So Melissa technically has the chance to make 4 landfalls as a hurricane. And in fact, Melissa is number 3 on latest Category 5 hurricanes since 1851. This is behind the unnamed storm of 1932 and also Hattie from 1961. Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast. Today, rain chances taper off. Still expect clouds, areas of light drizzle. Definitely bring that poncho with you if you're headed off to the Charlotte FC game. And that jacket, it's going to be chilly. Highs in the 50s. We will eventually start to clear out the rain by the time we get into Thursday, and looking fantastic for this Halloween weekend ahead.
All right, so that is a look at your full forecast. So at this moment, and for a while now, we've been keeping our eye on the conditions in Jamaica as Hurricane Melissa is barreling towards Jamaica. This is a look from the Sea Jamaica camera. That is the Kingston Harbor. You see a look there. It is windy. You see that camera shaking, the waves. Folks are bracing for a once in a generation type of storm, as have heard it described as. It is a massive storm. You're talking about a Category 5 that is nearing Jamaica, and will bring catastrophic winds, flooding, storm surge over the next several hours. So that's according to the National Hurricane Center. They're sending out that warning. It is set to hit the island again as a Category 5. That is the most powerful storm, that can be measured. Category 5 is the most powerful that can be measured. And so far, it's shaping up to be the most powerful storm of this year.
Yeah, Chris talked to us this morning when he was on, and he kind of had to make a point. We're seeing right now from the Sea Jamaica camera, the Kingston Harbor. You have to remember, this is the eastern side of the island.
Yeah.
Really, it's the western side of the island that's really gonna get it. Just so look at this, and this is not even scratching the surface.
Yeah, I mean, look, you think about the human aspect of it, and we talk to folks with local ties to Jamaica, but you got family, friends, communities, tourists over there in Jamaica.
With nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go.
The island's only so big.
Mm-hmm. And so it is, folks are bracing, and it's scary.
Yeah.
And so we are getting updates from officials there in Jamaica. We got the latest update a couple hours ago. That's the latest update from Jamaica, from officials there. So let's take you there now in case you missed it. It's the latest that we got from Jamaica.
Again for another press briefing. I think this is number 8 in terms of our press briefings. As always, we believe that it is important that you get accurate information, and so we are here to give that information to you. And with me this morning, I have Minister Desmond McKenzie, who is our Deputy Chair of our National Disaster Risk Council. He's also our Minister of Local Government and Community Development. We also have Minister Daryl Vaz, our Minister of Energy, Telecoms and Transportation, who is extremely important at this time. With us, we also have the person everybody wants to hear from, Mr. Evan Thompson, who is the head of our meteorological office here in Jamaica. Many people have said that they look forward to these briefings so they know what is happening, and I thank you all for tuning in. I thank the members in the diaspora for also tuning in and helping us to get get the message to your families back home in Jamaica. So this morning we're going to have a quick briefing, and so I'm going to start with Evan Thompson. I need to acknowledge some others who are in the room. I want to acknowledge the head of ODPEM, Mr. Richard Thompson, who is here, and also the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, Marsha Henry Martin, and they've all been here overnight. I also want to acknowledge the members of the media who are here. They have been here consistently with us. We want to thank them. They're here sleeping on cots. That's how committed they are to getting the news and the information to you, and I'm very grateful to them and thank them. I know it's difficult being away from your families, but know that we are grateful to you. Another person that I need to thank are the caterers. There are a lot of people here in the emergency center, and they need to be fed. And I want to thank the mothers team that's working to provide food. They bring breakfast, lunch, and they try to bring dinner too. And everybody who is in the emergency center is fed. We cannot do this without them, so I just wanted to acknowledge them also. So let's get started with the man of the moment, Evan Thompson.
Thank you very much, Minister. And the lady of the moment is Hurricane Melissa. And we'll be hearing a lot about Hurricane Melissa today because there has been no significant change in terms of the magnitude of this system, the strength of its winds. Our satellite imagery will just give you a good picture of what is really happening out there over the waters and even over the land, because Hurricane Melissa, a Category 5 hurricane, continues to barrel its way. Well, not barrel its way because it's still moving pretty slowly, but moving toward the southwestern coastline of Jamaica. We are starting to experience quite a few of the impacts of this system because we have been experiencing rainfall over much of the island, especially in the west and the south of the country. We've been having some periods of heavy rainfall, mostly moderate rainfall. There have also been gusts of wind and some sustained strong winds over sections of the island. The gusts, of course, going well into tropical storm force as we went through the night last night and as we have gone through this morning so far. We recognize that the system has not yet made landfall. The center is still some distance away from the coastline, just about 70 to 75 kilometers from the southwestern coastline, and it is still moving toward the north-northeast. So it is moving closer and closer to the coastline of Jamaica. I mentioned that it has been moving slowly, but it has been moving a little bit faster than it was previously because it's now moving at 11 kilometers per hour. That's just about 7 miles per hour. And it is expected to make that turn to be more in a direction, moving in a direction toward the northeast, which is a slight shift toward the east, more so than it is going at this time. So it will continue to move toward the island, making its entry on the southwestern coastline. We do expect, let me move this slide forward a little bit so you can see and get an idea of where we're expecting it to move. First, let me just point to those circles that you're seeing on the image, where the center is located. The inner, I refer to it as the inner core, which is that orange area that's surrounding it. And then you have the outer band, of the greens that extend across the country, which is what most of us have been experiencing thus far. But the inner core that we speak of is that orange area that we expect to be making some impact on the island, and that's where the stronger winds are concentrated. Also, the heavier rainfall is in that general area. We did say that the system is a Category 5 hurricane at this time, and when it makes landfall, it is expected to still be a Category 5 hurricane. That means it will cause catastrophic damage, life-threatening damage. There is very little that can stop a Category 5 hurricane. And regardless of the where you are in the parish of Westmoreland or St. Elizabeth, if you are under the impact of those Category 5 hurricane force winds, you will be having significant difficulty even with infrastructure that's in the area. So ensure that you are in the strongest area that you can. The recommendation from the Hurricane Center is that you would have as many walls between yourself and the outside as you can, because it is important to reinforce yourself and to ensure that you are not left vulnerable to this system. We do expect that it will gradually be reduced in strength as it moves over the island. It will fall to a category 4 maybe, and then category 3 as it exits the country possibly. But in the meantime, when it makes landfall, which is expected, as you can see in this image here, to be somewhere near Paraty in western St. Elizabeth, that's somewhat to the east of Black River. So it will most likely make landfall in the western part of St. Elizabeth rather than in the eastern part of Westmoreland. And then it will continue moving toward the northeast. That is the direction of movement that is expected. It will continue over the northern part of St. Elizabeth and then move into southern Trelawney. And the exit is expected to be somewhere in Trelawney rather than in St. Anne. It would be most likely in the eastern end of Trelawney rather than St. Anne, where it makes its exit from the island of Jamaica. Here we see the area, this area of orange shows the outer bands of this system, where we are expecting to be experiencing impacts. Heavy rainfall right across the length and breadth of Jamaica, also strong winds across the island. The amounts of rainfall that we expect, we see here again, we indicated that we would have between 20 and 30 inches or 500 to 750 millimeters of rainfall affecting sections of the island. The area that is expected to be impacted mostly has been narrowed a little bit on the map. So you'll see that Jamaica's central parishes are most at risk and extending into the west of the island as well. And then some slightly lower figures are expected for the rest of the island, but still significant rainfall. 12 to 16 inches, 300 to 400 millimeters is nothing to scoff at. It's still a lot of rainfall, still expected to produce significant flooding. You might be saying that this system doesn't seem to be packing much of a punch because what you've been experiencing outside doesn't seem to be worthy of all the hurrah that we're creating about the system. But the truth is, it is still some distance away from the coast, expected to move closer and then move across the island, and that means that the impacts are going to be significantly greater than you've already been experiencing. Flooding is expected, landslides are expected, storm surge is expected, and of course those strong winds we will not be able to escape, especially if you're in the path of this system and in the path close to the eye of the system. The rest of the island, I mentioned the category 5 hurricane force winds that will be experienced over parts of St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland going into Trelawney, but we are expecting tropical storm force winds over the rest of the country, and so we all should be experiencing or looking out for the experience of tropical storm winds right across the island. Here we see on our picture some of the areas that are expected to be mostly inundated by storm surge that is also expected to come onshore, and this would be in those bays and inlets. In the area of Black River, we expect significant storm surge, although the center is now expected to be somewhat of Black River, so this might have to be updated slightly, but Black River will also experience storm surge. Storm surge could get as high as 13 feet. That's high. 13 feet is a couple of stories high. And so you need to be very much prepared for that kind of activity if you're in any of those bays or inlets along the coast of St. Elizabeth in particular, and even going into Clarendon. So those traditional areas of storm surge impact, like Portland Cottage, Rocky Point, those are areas that, because of the geography, we are expecting still to experience some amount of storm surge in those areas, although probably not as significant as we would have in St. Elizabeth along the coast. So anywhere, even along the coast of Manchester, parts of Alligator Pond and, Treasure Beach area should also be looking out for that kind of activity, and going eastward as far as parts of St. Catherine. And that is basically the presentation at this time. I'm sure you'll have some questions that will bring out some more information later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Evan. You heard it. It is strengthening and it is coming to Jamaica. I know we've been praying for it not to hit, but it is going to hit us. So we have to heed everything that Evan has just said. I'm going to ask if there are any questions for Evan before we go on to the others. Any member of the media? Okay, please go ahead. Do we have a mic, or you're just going to speak very loudly and I'll repeat it?
Sure. Good morning.
I think the mic is coming.
Thank you. Good morning. Okay. Mike.
You can just speak and I'll repeat the question.
So, good morning, Father Whelan, Jamaican Mission Service. Has the window now officially closed for Jamaicans to make preparations, especially on the western side of the country, considering the distance of the system from the coast?
Okay, so the question was, has the window now closed for those who need to make preparations, especially on the western side of the island?
We're very close. Thanks for the question, JIS. We are very close to the closing of that window. I mean, I would not actually say it's entirely closed, because there are a couple of things that you might be able to do right outside your doors that could reinforce your structures. If that is a possibility, when we have some level of calm, I have been hearing from persons in St. Elizabeth, in Manchester, who have indicated that they are getting quite some heavy rainfall and some strong winds, but there are usually some lulls, some periods of semi-calm that they can probably do something quickly on the outside and get back inside. So we would like to ask everyone to ensure that you keep yourself safe. Exercise extreme caution if you have to do anything immediately outside. But of course, as the system moves any closer, we will start to experience the eye wall of the system moving onshore, and then the eye will make its impact. And we do expect that that will occur by midday today. So during the latter part of this morning, after 11 o'clock, I would say let's not take any chances on the outside. Let's make sure that we are on the inside, so as this system makes its way here, we're not destroyed ourselves. Apart from the structures outside, we have to make sure that we save our own lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Evan. We're going to now move to Minister Darrell Vaz, who is our Minister of Energy, Telecoms and Transportation.
Morning, Jamaica. Prayers up. Let's start with JPS, which I know is on everybody's mind. The electricity grid has already been impacted by hurricane conditions, which have caused several power outages across the island. Several generation units, critical high-voltage substations, transmission and distribution lines across the island have been forced out of service by the hurricane-force winds and lightning. As a result, approximately 240,000 or 35% of JPS customers are without power. That's out of a possible 700,000. Mainly in the parishes of St. Elizabeth, Manchester, St. James, and Hanover. The status, generation, there is adequate firm generation online to serve our customers. No renewables are available. As I said before, customers impacted, more than 75% of the customers in St. Elizabeth, Manchester, Hanover, and St. James are affected without electricity. The least impacted parishes, with less than 10% of customers impacted, St. Thomas, Kingston, and St. Andrew, and St. Catherine. The majority of hospitals continue to be supplied with JPS power, except those in Manchester and St. Elizabeth, such as Black River, Mandeville, and Percy Junior Hospital. But I can confirm that they are operating on standby power, generator power. There is no plan at this point to shut down the grid. JPS crews continue to respond and restore critical facilities and customers where it is safe to do so. In the meantime, JPS is reminding customers to stay safe and take precautions to protect life and property. And most importantly, stay tuned to official channels of information, which include government and JPS, for further updates. As it relates to our telcos, I'll start with Digicel. 26% of mobile network is offline, predominantly due to the widespread loss of power. There's a further 209 sites running on generators and 9 on batteries. For our fiber to home customers, we are seeing 20% customers offline due to no power in their homes. As we see the most impacted areas, we will work with our crews to focus on those areas first. Even if commercial power is still to be restored, we will keep generators fueled and gas the sites back to keep them up and running. They are also confirming that also in aid in recovery, we are working with the SMA to increase our spectrum bandwidth channels, as we know from our experience from Hurricane Beryl that the mobile.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. We are approaching the top of the hour, almost 1 o'clock, and that is an update from officials there in Jamaica. As you can see there on your right, Hurricane Melissa is just right there, headed, or essentially like right there on Jamaica, essentially. So we're keeping an eye on that. We're getting updates in real time. As soon as we get more updates, we'll continue to obviously provide those here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. But we want to take a step aside and take a 2-minute break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. We are now day 28 in the government shutdown. We continue to talk about the impacts from the shutdown by the day and some quick updates this afternoon just to catch you up on where we are. Again, we are on day 28. So the Senate failed to advance a Republican-backed funding bill to end the government shutdown for a 13th time today. Also, Vice President J.D. Vance is scheduled to have lunch with Senate Republicans at the Capitol. And then Democrats under increasing pressure to back down after the largest union representing federal government employees said that, quote, it's time to pass a clean continuing resolution and end the shutdown on Monday. So again, a lot of fallout, a lot of news coming in real time regarding this shutdown. But in the meantime, we have nonprofits, we have organizations, and we have local businesses stepping up to help federal workers. A lot of federal workers missing paychecks, really scrambling to feed their families, feed themselves, and to get the basic necessities. WCNC Charlotte's Autumn Bracey is live for us virtually. So Autumn, you spoke with a local business that is helping federal workers.
Hey, Nick. Yes, I actually got a chance to speak with two businesses, one in Charlotte, one in Cornelius, where I'm at now. It's amazing. The first one, Cuzzo's Kitchen in Charlotte, they're a smaller, locally owned business, and they were, it was interesting to hear them share, despite challenges that we've been facing throughout the year when it comes to inflation, we still want to give back. We still want to help those federal workers. And so they started last Tuesday giving meals to those federal workers. You do have to come in with identification. And they said they just want to support people during this challenging time. And I also, like I mentioned, I'm in Cornelius. I spoke with Choplin's Restaurant. They haven't started yet, but they're starting tomorrow. And so they really want to get the word out that they are here to help, people in need during this challenging time. They said they put out the message on Friday, but since then they've been getting a lot of people reaching out on social media, just being so thankful that this is opportunity has came about for them to help the federal workers. They said most of the people they've been hearing from is TSA workers and people that work at the airports. We know, they continue to work without pay.
Yeah, Adam, you just mentioned it. The messages from folks that need help. You mentioned TSA workers because Charlotte Douglas Airport, a big employer here. Did they share more of some of those conversations that they're having with federal workers?
Just people checking into as far as with Cuzzo's Kitchen to see if it's still going on. That was like one of the things they wanted to make sure. Both of the businesses tell me, because I was like, well, how long can you do this? And both of them said they plan to do it until the government shutdown ends. So they tell me they're looking, at least Cuzzo's Kitchen, for support if you can to help them be able to help these federal workers right now.
All right. Yeah. A great thing that they're doing. Again, a lot of folks are scrambling, trying to figure out what's next. As it looks like there's no clear end in sight for the government shutdown. Autumn, thank you. You can catch Autumn's story at 5:30 this evening. Autumn, again, thank you for joining the program.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. As I mentioned again, we're day 28 in the government shutdown. A lot of uncertainty right now as folks, especially federal workers and their families, try to figure out what's next and really try to prepare for what's next as well. All right. So do we want to go to this in South Carolina? Okay, so earlier today, and I don't have the information readily available, but just correct me if you can. We heard from Governor McMaster today regarding SNAP benefits.
Yes.
Those SNAP benefits, the deadline is November 1st.
Correct.
And it is October 28th, so
Yes.
that deadline is coming fast. You're talking about a lot of people who use SNAP benefits.
Depend on these, yeah.
Depend on it. And so this press conference was regarding that, and we heard updates from South Carolina officials, again, including Governor McMaster. Let's take a listen in to what he had to say earlier today, in case you missed it.
I'll squeeze in.
Is everybody happy with their spot? Can y'all see everybody all right? Well, y'all, thank you for coming out and welcome to the Emergency Management Division. Some of you have been here before. We have a number of people here that you've seen in other places. Senator Jeff Zell is here up from Clarendon and Sumter. Priscilla Elliott from Golden Harvest. Georgia Miarton from the Central Community Foundation. She's the president. Harvest Hope Food Bank, Aaron Rowe. Low Country Food Bank, President and CEO Nick Osborne, and I missed somebody in there. Also Tony Catone, Department of Social Services, Leon Lott, the State Guard Commander, also the Sheriff of Richland County, as all of you know. We're here to address the needs of the people of our state and their safety during this time of trial when the food for a lot of people has been cut off by the dysfunction in Washington. We wish they could pass that resolution to just keep spending money like they have been for these kind of things and debating other questions at other times, but they've chosen so far not to do that. So that means that for these types of things, we are once again left to ourselves, which we are prepared to meet, and it's a good thing. As y'all know from many times we've been at this podium in this building during emergencies, some terrible emergencies threatening death as well as destruction, South Carolina always pulls together. We've got a great team. We've worked together. It's a highly experienced team. It's a highly motivated team. And it's a team that cares very much about the people of South Carolina. The one fund is administered by the General Carolina Community Foundation located in Columbia. The fund was established, you'll remember, in 2015 following Hurricane Joaquin, when Governor Haley set it up and asked the South Carolina, it to serve as South Carolina's coordinated philanthropic response to disasters such as this one, as well as hurricanes, other storms, and fires. The 1SC fund has been activated in hurricanes Matthew, Florence, Helene, as well as COVID, as you remember. 99%, that is 99% of every dollar donated to the 1SC fund is granted to nonprofits, that is charities that provide local assistance in South Carolina. The remaining 1% goes for outreach and study and research and reporting and administration and the oversight of grant contracts. The Central Carolina Community Foundation has activated the 1SC fund to provide emergency monetary support, that is money, funds, to food banks and local feeding partners statewide during the suspension of the SNAP program. We don't know how long that's going to be. We'll address that in a few minutes about how quickly we can respond. Now again, this is for money, for checks, for contributions to charities, and we're asking you to do this. This money that goes to the 1SC fund will go directly to the food banks that we have that have been established for years all over South Carolina. We have a presence of food banks in every single county. All of this can be found online. We have 900 food banks and food pantries in the state, and they're broken up into 4 regional groups: the Golden Harvest Food Bank, the Harvest Hope Food Bank, the Low Country Food Bank, and the Second Harvest Food Bank of Metrolina. Also, the second part of the effort is I've asked the State Guard to participate. The State Guard has men and women all around our state that can respond to disasters, that can help in a variety of ways, and they will be there to assist in whatever way they can at these locations during this time. So we really do have a great team. And what we're asking is, we know people give regularly, some very generously, to charities, food banks, all these various charities all over the state. We want to encourage you to keep doing that. But this money that comes into 1SC fund will be used only for this effort and having the food and other supplies and things that are available at these food banks all over the state. All this can be found online, and we'll have questions in a little while. Georgia?
Thank you.
Governor, thank you for calling on us at Central Carolina Community Foundation to activate the One SC Fund, which, as you said, was created in partnership with the governor's office 10 years ago. I do want to say very clearly that South Carolinians know how to help their neighbors in times of crisis. Most recently, we saw that with Hurricane Helene. That was the largest activation of the One SC Fund. As context, that raised over $6 million. I want to say that today because we need people to step up and give in ways that they have never given before. We need our corporate partners and other foundations, philanthropy, to come together in a unified way to make sure that 550,000 people in this state who will not have access to their food benefits on November 1st have the food resources they need when they turn to their local food pantries and food ministries and food banks. As you said, Governor, there is a network of hundreds upon hundreds of people who show up every day to volunteer, to serve, to bring food donations, food products. But our food banks are short of the food resources that they need right now. And that's where the One SC Fund comes into play. We are here to raise those dollars and make grants as quickly as possible. Every dollar that comes into the One SC Fund, as you said, 99% will go right back out into local nonprofits here in South Carolina, including the large food distribution centers that you see their leaders standing here with us today. The One SC Fund starts at zero. We don't have a reserve of dollars waiting to be deployed. Today, we are opening this fund so that you can give. We're opening it because the need is great, and we urge you to go to One SC, make a cash contribution, mail in a check, give by credit card, or contact us if you'd like to make a gift in another way. We appreciate you, Governor, Team SC. We're so grateful for the nonprofits working day in and day out to meet needs, not only in times of crisis like this, but year-round. Thank you to our food banks, and thank you to the volunteers, the givers, the philanthropists in our community who step up every day and in times of crisis like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgia. And I'd like to note one thing. Usually when we're here with these meetings and briefings, we are speaking about a disaster that we know is going to come. Well, this is a disaster that may come, but this is a disaster unlike the others that we can avoid. And we can do that by doing what we're prepared to do, and that's all the citizens working together to help those who need the help, who need food. Thank you. And Erin Rowe, Harvest Hope Food Bank.
Thank you. My name is Erin Rowe. I'm the CEO of Harvest Hope Food Bank. We are the largest food bank in South Carolina, covering a 20-county footprint from the upstate all the way down to that PD corridor. Thank you so much, Governor McMasters, for hosting today. When I think about what we're about to approach and face, I am going back to Hurricane Helene because that was a great testament of people coming together. South Carolinians do take care of each other, and that's what we're calling on right now. A lot of times the perception is food banks are funded by the state. We actually don't get funding from the state. We are 100% philanthropically driven, so we can only provide the food that is given to us and the support that is given to us. When we're looking at the shutdown, we are actually at a critically low food point right now. That typically happens this time of year, going into winter months, going into the holidays. So our shelves are pretty bare across all three of my warehouses in Greenville, Florence, and Columbia. So we are actively looking for food resources. To purchase food is a 2 to 3 week lead time to get that tractor trailers of food into our facilities. So I just want everybody to understand this isn't a light switch I can flip on tomorrow and fill up all three of my warehouses. To address the 550,000 people that are going to be needing assistance in about a week's time. So we do ask that everybody comes together and that we do take care of our neighbors. This is a moment for us to step up because people need to eat. So I appreciate you hosting this today, and I'm looking forward to us working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin Rowe. Nick Osborne, Low Country Food Bank. Thank you very much indeed, Government McMaster, and everyone who's here today to support our neighbours who unfortunately are facing hunger here in South Carolina. My name's Nick Osborne. I'm the President and CEO at the Low Country Food Bank. I'm also the Vice Chair of the Feeding the Carolinas Association, which is a dual state association representing food banks across the Carolinas. At the Low Country Food Bank, we serve the 10 coastal counties of South Carolina. And just to give a sense of the scale of the work that we do, in the past year, we distributed 46 million pounds of food. That's the equivalent of 33 million meals. Unfortunately, in this past year, we are seeing an increase in the levels of food insecurity. We've seen in some parts of our service area increases in need of up to 30%. So there is certainly a need amongst our communities. 1 in 7 people in South Carolina, and that includes 1 in 5 children, live in food insecure households. Those most at risk of experiencing hunger are, unfortunately, our children, older adults, veterans, and people with disabilities. And as Aaron has shared, that need continues to rise. With the backdrop of the highest food insecurity rates in nearly a decade, the government shutdown is creating hardship and uncertainty for tens of thousands of federal employees, active duty military members, and people who work for federal contractors in South Carolinas. Many hardworking people across our state are just one paycheck away from the support that they need, and therefore are turning to food banks for that support. Food banks, and of course our incredibly large network of dedicated partner agencies, have shown time and time again that we have the capacity to respond. And this is another example of a time when we will also respond. And obviously, when that funding is available, we will be activating and responding. Private support is vital to our mission, and we're incredibly grateful for it. However, we can't replace the sheer volume of nutrition assistance that federal programs like SNAP provide our neighbours who are experiencing hunger. And as we've heard already, SNAP is providing nearly 550,000 people in South Carolina with the food that they need to get by each month. 48% of South Carolinian households receiving SNAP have children. Even with robust support, food banks can provide only a fraction of the nutritional assistance that feeding programs like SNAP provide. For every meal that a food bank provides the neighbours experiencing hunger, SNAP provides up to 9. As the need rises, South Carolina food banks will continue to show up for their communities. We will continue to work together, and we will continue to meet the need amongst our communities. So we're looking forward to working with everyone in partnership with the lawmakers, our business community, our faith community, and individuals to ensure that everyone in South Carolina continues to have the food that they need on the tables each and every day. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rick Osborne. Tony Catone, Department of Social Services.
Thank you, Governor. Hello, everyone. I'm here to tell you just a little bit about the reason for this need. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, called SNAP, is the federally funded program that provides low-income households with nutrition assistance by increasing the household's food purchasing power for groceries. Benefits are paid monthly. The funds flow directly from the federal government to a third-party vendor which processes the benefits. The state agency is responsible for determining eligibility of applicants but does not administer the funds directly. This means that DSS and the state of South Carolina do not have direct access to the funds. As many know already, the federal agency that governs SNAP, the USDA, has suspended November 2025 SNAP benefit allotments until further notice. And more recently, the USDA notified states that they cannot cover the cost of these benefits and be reimbursed later by the federal government, that's not allowed. For the month of September 2025, the SNAP program in South Carolina served 266,350 households. That represents 556,359 individuals, and the program provided $103,805,406 in federally funded benefits. That's per month. 71% of benefits recipients are children and seniors. We've been informed that food banks and food pantries from our community partners are already experiencing increasing demand, and I think that's a good sign that people are planning ahead. But the need here will be great, and that's why we're grateful for Governor McMaster calling this press conference and the activation of the 1SC Fund by the Central Carolina Community Foundation. The people of South Carolina are a caring people who know how to love their neighbor. I've read that in some languages, the word or symbol for crisis is nearly identical to the word or symbol for opportunity. Our community has the opportunity here to stand in the gap for our neighbors and share with one another as we see needs. My prayer is that we will not let this opportunity to make a difference in the lives of others pass us by. And I believe in the spirit of unity among our people in South Carolina. That spirit can meet this need. Thank you, Governor.
Thanks, sir. Tony Catone. Sheriff Lott, Leon Lott, Commander of the State Guard.
Thank you. The governor has directed the State Guard to be part of this effort. This is a challenge, but when there's a challenge, we also have opportunities, and this is an opportunity for all of us to work together to take care of those in our state who need our help. You just heard that the majority of these people are kids and senior citizens. That's the two groups that we really need to always focus on. The State Guard is over 400 men and women who wear this uniform, who love this state, but also care for every citizen here. What we want the governor to do is assist in these operations. As these tractor trailers come into these different food banks, we'll have soldiers there ready and able to unload the trucks. But we also will be there as a show of force with our local law enforcement agencies to make sure that everything's done in a safe and orderly way. We don't want anybody to try to take advantage of this challenge that we've got, and we're going to make sure that those in uniform are there to take care of that. But this is an opportunity for South Carolina to stand tall. We've done it in the past, and we'll continue to do it. This is another opportunity for South Carolinians to take care of South Carolinians, and we can do it. Your State Guard is trained and ready for operations like this, and we're going to be out there in full force supporting the governor's efforts and everybody up here, and all those that are listening and watching, the volunteers and those who want to help. We're ready to help. We need your help. This is a time for all of us to stand together as one South Carolina. But your State Guard is trained and ready, and we'll be there to assist. Thank you.
Thank you, Commander and Sheriff. Well, you see what we're facing, and again, I think this is a real opportunity, and the real good news in it is that if the Congress does not pass a authorization, then we are ready. We don't have to hurry and get ready. We stay ready. We stay ready for hurricanes. A lot of states don't have hurricanes. Of course, they don't have oceans, so they don't have the kind of networks that we have. And I think most states probably are not as deeply related to each other as we are in South Carolina. Everybody's got cousins everywhere and friends for lifetimes because we don't move much. If we're born here, we typically stay here. So those things give us a big advantage. But this is a time, as Rick Osmond said, that they usually on regular days they give out maybe one meal for every 9 that the SNAP program would cover. Well, what that means is this is not a time to make a regular donation. This is not a time for regular help. This is time for something extraordinary. This is a time where if you gave $1 to the 1SC fund in an earlier time, of course, always give more. But if you gave, say to a charity, if you gave $1, this would be a time to give 10. So these food banks, they're in every single county, 46 counties. The State Guard is all over the state. We have a great network, but what we must have is volunteers and money. We have to have those two things in order to do the job. But I'm confident that we can do it. Does anyone have a question they'd like to ask anybody here? Yes, sir.
I have a question for you, Governor. Obviously, yesterday, Representative Hamilton Grant sent a letter to you about declaring a state of emergency. Do you plan on declaring a state of emergency due to these expiring SNAP benefits?
No. Even if I did declare a state of emergency, assuming that emergency exists, you have to meet certain criteria for that. This is certainly something that we're very worried about at this point. But that would only mean there's no money, there's no pots of money that state of emergency declaration would open up. We don't have any for this. We don't have any for food. And the other alternative would be for the legislature to come back in. Well, since they are technically still in session, the way the sine die resolution works, I can't call them back in, and they would have to call themselves back in. But in that event, they'd have to appropriate money for food, because there's nothing out there, even under an emergency declaration by me, that addresses food. So that's a long, tedious process. It may produce nothing. So the best thing we have, and we're lucky to have it, because we've been through real crises before, we can avoid this one. We can avert this one by doing what has been requested here of our people. Everybody knows some, and I want to say this. People, we saw it in Hurricane Helene when we had all the different agencies, including some of the federal agencies. There were people that we noticed that seemed to be a little bit shy about asking for help here or there. There's no shame in asking for help when something like this happens, when you do not have enough money for food, and that's why you're on the program to begin with. Your neighbors are happy to help. That's why we're here. So I'd say if you need help, come on in and bring a friend with you. You probably know somebody else that needs help that has never asked for it before and embarrassed or shy, just don't want to do it. This is a time for us to work together. And something like this will happen again. We're going to have real disasters. We don't know what's coming from the hurricanes. The hurricane down in the tropics now is going 175 miles an hour. We never have seen one of those, and we hope we don't see that one. But we've seen real disasters. This is something we can avoid. This is something that we can take care of ourselves without depending on anyone else. And that's a great thing. Another question.
Governor McMaster, we're hearing this plea for South Carolina residents to step up and give. How is the South Carolina government itself going to step up?
Well, there are very few mechanisms that we have other than the agencies that are already in place, but we have no agency that gives out food. This is that's what the SNAP program was there for, is there for, and we can put ourselves into that position right now by what we're doing today.
When you're standing up there, it's a disaster that we can't avoid. It's a hurricane that we can't deflect or move. This thing, there seems like there's at least 3, 4, 5 different ways you could avoid this. Is it frustrating that no one's taking the initiative to try to avert this crisis?
Well, we have to deal the cards that were dealt, and they're frozen in Washington right now, so we're doing it ourselves. And fortunately, we have the ability, we have the assets. All it takes is the will to do it. Yes, sir.
A lot of elderly are on SNAP and may need food to take their medicine, and now they might have to use their medicine money to buy food. Is there anything in place for them with that?
I think the short answer is that there is nothing that substitutes for SNAP. That is the federally funded program that is designed to provide for this food need, and so there really isn't a ready substitute that exists.
For Aaron or Nick, both of y'all have mentioned, including this morning, but repeatedly, there is a way food banks can totally make up and fill this gap that SNAP could potentially leave by the end of this week. Is there anything else you want to see the state do, or you want to see done in general, short of congressional action, to avert this crisis?
I'll take that. It's just a matter of math, honestly. $100 million per month is not something that we've ever seen philanthropy raise in a week. So it's a matter of having money to buy food. We will buy it as fast as we possibly can with the money that's given to us, but once again, we're limited by the amount of donations that we receive. It is going to take a statewide effort that is bigger than a philanthropy effort to fill in this gap that SNAP is leaving right now because of the sheer volume. Like, it's just, we are not logistically made to address the sheer volume of need that's about to happen.
Let me add this. There are a lot of ways without going through an official program or a charity, and that's just helping your neighbor. If you know somebody that needs help, go buy a basket of food and leave it on the front doorstep. Maybe put it up high so the dogs won't get it, but leave something for them. There are 1,000 ways that you can help without going through a program. But this is a program. This 1SC is specifically designed for this kind of thing and the network that has been built up over the years. So this is a perfect way to do it. And we just ask everybody to think about it and be generous. More questions? Did somebody else have an answer?
I got a broader logistics question. So I know that we mentioned that we have something like 900 food banks throughout the state, but the benefit of SNAP is that it follows the money where people tend to go. And I'm sure some of the food banks are probably concentrated in some areas versus others. Do we know areas that are particularly vulnerable and any plans to address gaps there for people who can't get around?
So I'll share that if you go to onescfund.org, there are resources linked, including a map of the 900 distribution sites. It's really important to note, exactly as you said, that there are high concentration areas, and then there are areas that are distant from where people are living and are in need. Part of the value of having this tremendous infrastructure of 4 large food banks that cover the state is that they can receive those food resources in. They have that supply chain in place. But then, you talked about the 2 weeks, the 3 weeks that it takes. Then those food resources have to get out to each of those individual pantries and food banks. Each of those are not open, all the time, right? Some are volunteer efforts that happen out of faith ministries. So, Governor, I appreciated what you said. Show up. If that means bringing food from your local grocery store to your church, your faith institution, your community center, where there are little children, where there are people in need, where service is happening, do that, right? If you want to give to a statewide coordinated philanthropic response, give to the 1SC Fund.
How specifically is the money going to go to the banks? Do they have to, apply for grants or?
Yes, thank you for asking. We always are very transparent about the way that we grant philanthropic and privately contributed dollars out. We run a grants process available on our website now, with the priority initially being to flow the dollars to these large food banks because they can get the dollars out quickly, while gap filling with smaller grants to those smaller localized food pantries and food ministries. Again, I want to reiterate that we start at zero every time there's an activation of the 1SC Fund. We still have dollars that were contributed from Hurricane Helene for that activation, and those dollars need to be restricted for that.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. That is a press conference from Columbia, South Carolina. Moments before we got into the stream this afternoon, hearing from officials there in South Carolina and South Carolina Governor McMaster regarding the state's plans regarding SNAP benefits there. So we want to come back home. And speaking of SNAP benefits, today, and Carlene, we brought that press conference here on Live Impact News, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we had a press conference with North Carolina Attorney General Jeff Jackson announcing a lawsuit against the Trump administration over SNAP benefits. Now, North Carolina and more than 20 other states are suing the Trump administration for pausing federal funding of SNAP benefits, impacting so many people. We want to bring in Attorney General Jeff Jackson here on the program. Attorney General Jackson, thank you for your time.
You got it. Good to see you.
Good to see you too again. Can you just explain, I gave a rundown of this lawsuit, but can you explain the decision to be a part of this lawsuit?
It was not a hard decision. This is a lot of money. It's going to really hurt the state. 1.4 million North Carolinians rely on this program for food to eat, including 600,000 children and about 40,000 babies. So the consequences here would be severe. And the legal case is pretty straightforward. The Department of Agriculture, which runs the SNAP program, they have an emergency fund. It's $6 billion. Congress gave them this money to make sure that there was never an interruption in SNAP services because of the consequences. And the department is basically just choosing not to use their emergency fund. They've used it in the past. There's never been an interruption of SNAP services before. They told us when the shutdown began that they had this fund that they could use if they needed to, and now they've basically just willfully decided not to. That is against the law. If Congress gives a department money, the department can't just refuse to fund a program, so we're taking them to court.
Well, as you mentioned, you said the department, USDA, basically said we're not going to use these funds for SNAP benefits. Did they say specifically why? I know you said they just willfully chose not to, but did they specifically say why they're not going to do that and where that money would go toward instead?
Well, they reversed themselves on their explanation. So about a month ago, they said this emergency money can be used for SNAP. And now they're trying to say, well, actually, we don't think it can be used for SNAP. But that's plainly not the case. This has been used for SNAP in the past. They told us a month ago that it could be. I think what is actually happening here is they've decided to play shutdown politics. They are deliberately deciding to ratchet up the pain in order to precipitate a crisis here to try and make some political maneuver.
We've been hearing stories from families, from folks at food banks, from everywhere impacted by the shutdown. What are some of the conversations you've been having with folks here in North Carolina who are impacted by this?
What I want people to understand is people have been impacted already. That is nothing compared to what will happen if this funding shutdown is allowed to go into effect. It will be a dramatic worsening of the current situation, the likes of which this country hasn't seen, frankly, in a very long time. 600,000 kids in 4 days just in North Carolina will not have enough to eat. The downstream consequences for this, for overwhelmed food pantries, overwhelmed churches, classrooms that now have far more hungry kids, teachers being asked to deal with that. I mean, this stretches into everything, and it hits in 4 days.
Well, while this plays out, I guess many folks are asking, what is the state doing to fill that gap?
There is no way to fill the gap. There is no way to remotely fill the gap. Nonprofits are going to try. They're going to scramble. Food pantries are going to scramble. But if this is allowed to go into effect, and again, we've got a lawsuit, and we're asking the court to take emergency action so this does not go into effect. But if it does, there is no way to come close to filling the gap.
One final question. You've been so generous with your time this afternoon. So you've sued the Trump administration several times, been a part of lawsuits with other states. Do you foresee any further legal actions against federal agencies if this shutdown continues and it continues to impact folks?
We're not looking to sue just to sue. I mean, they have to break the law. The reason we're suing here isn't because this is a very bad outcome. That's one reason, but it's because we have a strong legal case. If they were genuinely out of money, if this emergency fund didn't exist, we wouldn't have a legal argument to make. So going forward, our criteria for filing lawsuits will be the same as it ever is. If you hurt the state and if you've broken the law, we're going to take you to court.
Attorney General Jeff Jackson, thank you for your time once again here on Live Impact News. Thank you, and you're welcome back here as always. Thank you for your time.
You got it. Take care.
And again, there you heard from North Carolina Attorney General Jeff Jackson regarding that lawsuit against the Trump administration over SNAP benefits. A lot of folks impacted here in North Carolina. And also, I want to mention South Carolina. Over 1 million folks here in North Carolina rely on the SNAP program. So if you missed that interview, you can head over to our digital platforms, WCNC.com, also our app, to replay that interview and listen back to that interview into its entirety. All right, so let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNT Plus. I'm Nick Sertivant. We are continuing to keep our eye on Hurricane Melissa. Hurricane Melissa making landfall in Jamaica as a Category 5 around 1 p.m. Our time. That's according to the National Hurricane Center. Take a look at this. This is what, Montego Bay? Oh, man, you see the winds there as Melissa has made landfall again, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the Category 5 storm is the most powerful storm of 2025 so far as the Atlantic hurricane season. The Hurricane Center said it was, quote, one of the most powerful hurricane landfalls on record in the Atlantic basin. That is very staggering. So a lot of folks bracing there on the island, from folks who live there to people here and all over who have family members over there, to tourists stuck there on the island. You're talking about some high winds. I'm reading maximum sustained winds are near 185 miles per hour. Let that sink in, folks. That is, yes, again, staggering. You're talking about, we're anticipating widespread damage to property and infrastructure. And so that, and this storm already has, 7 hurricane-related deaths tied to it. So that is a live look from that camera there as Melissa rolls through the island. And so many folks, again, are keeping an eye on this storm, either because they have family members or because, look, as human beings, we want to make sure those folks over there are okay, especially after the storm when that cleanup process begins. So we actually, speaking of organization and folks looking to help, a guy who just stepped in to help in a big time way over a year ago with Hurricane Helene is now stepping in this time when it comes to Hurricane Melissa. We're talking about NASCAR legend Greg Biffle. And he is planning to send relief. Is he planning to go there himself?
I believe so. Actually, I mean, we just got this interview in, and I haven't had a chance to listen to it. Our friends over at FMY grabbed this for us.
And we just wanted to play it for you. Again, we're getting some of this stuff.
We know he's a pilot. We know he flew relief during Helene. I think he has plans to fly to Jamaica. So.
And I'm reading it right here on our content partner's website before we get to that interview. WFNY News 2's Megan Malaris talked with Biffle as he prepared a plan for a rescue and relief response by air and by boat, all while keeping in mind the potential red tape of international regulations on civilian assistance. So we want to get you to that interview again that just came in.
Right.
We wanted to play it for you again. This is a NASCAR legend, Greg Biffle. Let's take a listen in.
Greg, thanks for being here. You posted on Facebook this morning you're trying to coordinate opportunities by sea and air for relief in Jamaica. Talk me through what you're thinking and planning.
Well, there's certainly all kinds of avenues to provide relief. The biggest problem is we don't know the terrain. We don't know the extent of the damage. Obviously, this storm looks like it's 2 or 3 times the size of the hurricane that hit Western North Carolina with 3 to 5 feet of rain. I can't even imagine what those people are going to go through, but I have obviously the helicopter, an airplane, a large boat, and then a landing craft. The steel military landing craft is designed to land on the beach, can haul 150,000 pounds of cargo. I use it for my Bahamas property. That could be very valuable in this situation, depending on if they have any marina or docks left. They may not have a way to get supplies on shore or possibly around the island. By water may be one of the better avenues for getting supplies to certain villages or whatnot. Just a lot of information unknown at this point.
I know you are working through some international restrictions and trying to figure out what those rules might be, but already you have offers to help. I know your friend Cletus McFarland, Garrett Mitchell, is offering to help. The Facebook response has had people from here saying, hey, I'll donate my chainsaw again. This must bring back memories of Hurricane Helene a year ago.
It really does. It's giving me goosebumps right now because of all of the people that just poured out last time and were willing to help. And I feel even more helpless now being so far away from the disaster, to just not knowing what they need. That was the biggest thing with Hurricane Helene, but we were able to get eyes in the sky and get on the ground and get Starlink in and figure out what we needed. This is a much bigger operation to try and figure out what they need, coordinate with the right people that can we get in the country, what do we need to do as far as obeying by all the procedures. So it's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts at this point.
Greg, well, thank you so much for, again, being ready to help. And we'll stay on top of your Facebook page for any updates on how we can assist you in your efforts.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, so that is NASCAR legend Greg Biffle as he is preparing to deploy to Jamaica. Safe travels to Biffle and his team as they work to try to help folks there in Jamaica as Hurricane Melissa is, as you see right there, on top of the island. It has made landfall. It made landfall around 1 o'clock our time. So again, we will continue to keep an eye on the conditions there and the situation there in Jamaica. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Carlene is here, and Carlene, get hype.
I'm hype.
Get hype.
I'm hype.
Are you hype at home? Get hype. It's all right. Get hype. You can get up. If you're at work, just get up and just scream. Just do it.
Round of applause. Just clap.
No. If you're at work right now, get up and scream.
Ah!
Hopefully a little bit more enthusiastic. Okay,
What do you mean?
You may be asking why, Nick. Why are you asking me to scream? Because it's the playoffs are here.
Playoffs are here, baby.
I kind of sound like.
You sure about that, Nick?
Playoffs? That's kind of who I sound like. But Charlotte FC is starting their playoff series against New York City FC. Man, look, Charlotte FC has had a great year. A year, if correct me if I'm wrong, Jeb, it was kind of shaky in the beginning, right? Things were a little.
There was a small part when you look at the grand scheme of the season where the results may not have been what the club was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
But and Tim Ream himself described it to us as a roller coaster year. But I think if you really look at it as one long season, it was a great season.
Yeah.
They started off very strong, took a little dip, and then had a literal historic rise coming into these playoffs. So I would say it was shaky at times, but I think easily, and the statistics will show you, the best season in Charlotte FC history.
It's a long season.
It's a long season. We've been doing this all year.
So yeah, I understand. Like, you know, look, you go through the season, you can't. It's hard to keep the same intensity, the same pace.
It's a long
but
year.
when they needed it, they got
They
it
got
done. So yeah, as Jeb just mentioned, Tim Ream, we had him on. Danielle Stein did a one-on-one interview with Tim Ream. Let's take a listen in.
Right on the cusp of the playoffs beginning, it's been a very interesting season for you and all Charlotte FC. As you're getting ready to go into this match day with NYCFC, just where's the team at and where are you at alongside things right now?
Yeah, we're in a good place. Obviously, the year has been a little bit of a roller coaster and a little bit streaky for us with the beginning of the year going really well, and we hit a really rough patch in the middle. But when you come to the end of the year, that's when you want to be playing your best and get on a good run, and that's where we're at right now. 11 wins out of the last 13, and the team has gelled really well over the course of the season, and I think everybody's ready to really get going for the first game.
Everyone was obviously, last year, I'm going to bring it back to last summer when you came here, thrilled to welcome you to Charlotte, coming with so much experience. At that point, though, you had only come into playoffs with just a few months, basically, with this team. Where are your, perceptions of this team where you are now compared to where you were last year heading into the playoffs before?
Yeah, I think last year you come in and even as an older player, experienced player, you have to settle in. You have to come in and not necessarily be, demanding, but you almost have to take a step backwards to observe and understand, the way the team works, the way the individuals work, the way they, what they're good at and what you can help with. And I think, if you look at it from a team perspective, obviously last year we were not top four. We didn't get the extra home match for the playoffs, and now here we are. I think it's been a natural kind of progression that the team has gone on this kind of upward trajectory season to season, and I think that's a sign of a good group, a good team that you can continually improve on what you did the previous season, and that's going to be important for us obviously with the playoffs, because we made it to the first round, but didn't have the extra playoff game, and then didn't quite make it out of the first round. So that's where we're at. That's where our aim is, and what we want to accomplish.
Dean was just telling us this morning that it's still a bit of a fire that's been burned from how last playoffs ended, based on just the situation where you're put in and getting into PKs, and no one wants things to end in a situation like that. How are the returning staff and also players kind of fueled by last year's playoff as you're about to enter this year's?
You know what? It's funny. We've not really discussed it a whole lot, but it's there.
Yeah.
I think you have that feeling where you're like, okay, we felt a little bit hard done by last year, and now here we are, a full calendar year later, and we have the potential to change that. To change that feeling, to change that outcome. I remember sitting in the changing room last year, and at the end of that third game down in Orlando, and thinking, and the discussion was, we don't want to feel like that again.
Yeah.
And that has been has definitely been a motivator, but it's not been something that we've necessarily dwelled on and talked about at length, because I think the more you focus and you harp on it, it becomes almost something that nags at you. So we've used it as motivation to start the year, but we're a very different team now than we were 12 months ago, and in a much better place for sure.
You guys are a much different team even from the start of the season. Things have changed so much in terms of where people were on the lineup.
Yeah.
Like you're a left back for a lot of the beginning of the year. What was that like for you, playing out of a position that you're not typically in? You're a center back, and you were spending a lot of your time there, and obviously you found your place in the middle with Malanda as of late, and things have been seemingly clicking beautifully.
It was terrible, actually.
Yeah.
Obviously, coming into the season, last year it was adrenaline. You can play, it's a short amount of time. You can play left back. You can fill a gap and fill a hole, and help the team out in any way you can. And the beginning of this year was similar, but then obviously things happen, injuries, suspensions and all sorts, and you end up getting stuck out there, and that's never been my best position. Again, you can fill in, you can you can do certain games and try to help the team, but listen, at the end of the day, I'm a center back by nature, and that's when I'm at my best. And obviously going away with the U.S. team and getting a run of games at center back and then coming back, it was a much easier kind of transition into that center back role. And Addy and I have just the communication, the understanding between the pair of us and everybody around us, and it has made it so much more enjoyable. Like you said, we've had our ups, we've had our downs this season, and now him and I together at the back, organizing, doing all the things that we're being asked to do is put us in a position that we get to have this this playoff game here, and hopefully we can go on and do something special.
As you were just mentioning, I mean, it was terrible from your perspective. Like you're saying, it's something that you're not comfortable with, but it also shows that you're willing to do whatever you need to do with the team to make it work. What does that kind of say about the unselfishness and willingness that all of you guys in the back line seem to be having throughout this year?
Yeah, I think that's what you just said there is a perfect point. Everybody has had to do it at some point. Nathan Byrne playing left back for the last couple games. Harry Toffolo who's came in, got a little injury and had to come out, and Jack, Jaquil playing left back, Bill playing right back. So there, it's not just myself. We've all had to, had to take our turns playing positions that we may not be comfortable with, and trying to find the right mix, the right matches, the right partnerships, and I think it just says a lot about the group's mentality, the team first mentality that everybody here has, and I think that again we've gone through that tough period in May and June. And we've come out on the other side in a much better place, even with guys playing positions that they may not necessarily have wanted to play. So I think it speaks volumes and speaks so highly of the guys and the group as a whole.
Do you think there's a left back curse on this team this year? That's been what's said online, at least.
I won't get into that. I will say that's probably been discussed more than the penalty loss penalty shootout loss last year.
Okay, I will though circle back to that May and June. That is a character building part of the season for you guys. That it was shaky. There was a lot of uncertainty on where you guys could go from there, especially after having that really strong start to the season. So that kind of stark contrast. But throughout it all, Dean was really saying, you don't get too high with the highs, you don't get too low with the lows. How is that message conveyed within all of you guys? And do you feel like you were able to make it through to the other side essentially because of that messaging?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a great message no matter what what sport you're playing or what career you're in. You're going to have highs, you're going to have lows, and the highs are never as euphoric as you think they are, and the lows are never as bad as they seem. And that was we were playing okay. I think we were playing well enough to get results, and we just weren't. But you have that in a season, and it's how can you keep going? How can you get up when you get knocked down, and how can you turn things around? When things aren't going your way, and the staff did a great job of keeping guys on task and focused on the bigger goal, and that's the end of the season. Was getting into the top four and making sure that we were playing at home with the playoffs. And at the time, I'm sure everyone was like, this team it's not going anywhere. We're looking like we're not even going to make the playoffs, and guys just stuck with it. Guys stuck to it, and they believed and they listened, and we were better off for it because of the messaging, and here we are, getting ready for the playoffs.
You guys turned it around from there. Season went on. You ended up going on that 9-game 9-game winning streak where you guys were seemingly clicking on all fronts. A huge part of that was Kalina. he had also turned a corner after he
Yep.
had a little bit of a rough spell himself. That obviously works with the synergy of the back line as well. How has that evolved this season to a point where he's now back where he was at a place last year where he was named MLS Keeper of the Year?
Yeah, he's obviously been huge. He's a big reason why, you know, we win games, and you know, we talk about it all the time. You have to be better than the other team in both boxes, and when whatever happens, you need your keeper, and you need to trust your keeper and rely on him to make the saves. And you know, he's done that. You know, he had a rough patch just like all of us did, and I think there was, you know, a good number of the team who wished May and June were not 2 months of the year or 2 months of the season this year. But you know, he's rounded back into form, and really just started to take over games again. Just making the saves that he should, but then also the saves that you know, he pulls off are, you know, you think, okay, it probably shouldn't make those saves. But it gives everybody in front of him the confidence to go and do what we have to do, because we know we have him behind us. We know he's on top of his game, and you know, he's playing as good, if not better, than he did last year.
You're not playing exactly the same positionally as Wilfried Zaha, but someone that I know is extraordinarily impactful across the fields. You've known him throughout his career, of course, playing in the Premier League as well. What has the insertion of his energy and his just presence on this team done for them, in your perspective, this year compared to what you saw out of the team last year?
Yeah, I think he's brought another level of hunger, another level of drive. Somebody who he wants to win at all costs, and you know, if that means, you know, getting on to guys and you know, speaking up in the changing room and you know, having his feelings known and heard. You know, guys seem to respond to that. You know, I think he's brought this again, this drive to want to push everybody forward. And you know, there's a handful of us in there that all want that, and we're all a little.
All right, so that is just some of the interview with Tim Ream with Charlotte FC. I failed to mention this because I was so hyped. The playoff game is tonight, by the way.
It's tonight.
So there are going to be a lot of folks. There are folks in our building that are going to be at that match tonight at the bank. So there's a lot of excitement. You can't keep the rain and the cold weather can't keep
true fans, right?
True fans out of the bank. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get back to the interview. But let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNT Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. All right, so again, Charlotte FC, they play game 1 of their first round playoff series tonight at the Bank of America Stadium, Uptown. A lot of excitement.
Bring your jacket, please.
Bring your jacket. Bring your gloves.
Mulcahy said something interesting in the morning. He said, bring a small towel. Bring a towel.
Yeah.
You don't want a wet tushy. You know what I mean? And you're gonna. There's a chance that you might have one. So bring a towel.
My fingers get cold. So
My fingers get cold. Gloves. You know.
So
think warm thoughts.
That's a great piece of advice. Think warm thoughts.
You know.
So yeah, just be prepared. That's the theme of it. Be prepared. So we want to get back out to that one-on-one. In case you missed it, Tim Ream had a sit down with Danielle Stein to talk about this season leading up to this match and even this match against New York City FC. Let's take a listen in.
Some speak more than others, and he's a big voice. He's a big character, and somebody who's come in and really tried to push the team forward, and obviously again. You look from last year or the season before to now, and it's been a gradual progression, and bringing him in with his goals, his assists, and the way he plays and draws other teams towards him and opens space for others has obviously worked really well for us this year and put us in the position that we're in.
He's mentioned to us too after some of the matches that we've had these heated kind of halftime locker room chats, but you just mentioned before that all of the leaders have your own kind of style. What is yours, would you say, at this point in your career with Charlotte FC?
Yeah, listen, I mean, I'm not I'm not going to sit in the changing room and be rah-rah. I'm not going to scream at guys. It's more of like the calm dad vibe energy. Disappointed, guys, we need to be better. If you need anything, I'm kind of there, because again, I'm not the only one, but you play long enough in the game, you've seen a lot of different things, a lot of different ups and downs, and I'm one of those that if you need something, no problem. You can come to me, and also more of like, right, guys, like, this is the reality. This is where we're at. This is what we can do. But it's it's kind of up to us. So a little bit more laid back, a little bit more relaxed, but still trying to show by example. That you can do whatever you want to do, if you continue to work at it and put your mind to it.
I feel like sometimes the I'm not mad, I'm disappointed is almost scarier though than the yelling, when it's like, oh, this guy is the calm one and he's saying that.
Yeah, the calm one in the corner who is just looking like, I think you really messed that one up there. But I try to be. I'm more of an optimist. I try to be more positive than negative. But I'm not afraid to speak up if I have to.
And of course, as of late, there's been a lot to be positive about. With your experience, though, you've obviously throughout your career played in a number of different tournament styles, between the national team when you're playing in the Prem, but specifically if we're going to look like World Cup, it's obviously a lot of games in a short amount of time. How does playing in, of course, stakes may be different, but playing in a format like that differ to an MLS playoff?
Yeah, I mean, I think the games, especially in the first round, are a little bit more condensed. So your recovery really takes. Listen, the games are center stage, but your recovery is probably the most important part of this condensed kind of 10-day period. And if you can recover quickly, you're going to put yourself in such a better position. I mean, in terms of intensity, I think the playoff feel has already been there. It's been there for a few weeks, and I think guys have gotten used to that and have that ramped up kind of feeling and energy with it. But I mean, just the format of it being, okay, you play 3 days after your first game, but then you play 6 days after your second game. So that is makes things a little bit different, a little bit tricky, because there's not that nice kind of equal cadence between games. But I think that the biggest thing is making sure that, listen, you have to win 2 of 3. and it doesn't matter how you win 2 of 3. And now it's you take each game. And you put everything into the first game because you can be done before it even begins.
Right.
So yeah, I think just being so focused on okay, one game at a time. Yes, it's cliche, but then you take that game and then you recover as quickly as possible because the time between games is very different.
Playing against NYCFC this season, you did split results.
Yep.
You each won your home match.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that really corresponds when you're playing in a playoff situation like this, when you're getting that home field advantage when you're here, and you get it twice potentially if you don't shore it up on the road? Do you feel like coming into this playoffs you feel good knowing that you're starting at home with the bank behind you?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think there's some crazy stat with the league of home field advantage, and it's why it's so important to be in that top 4 at the end of the regular season, because it plays such a huge difference. And as you said, we split the first 2 games, and both winning at home. I think that definitely plays on on your mind a little bit. Not in a negative way, but it definitely, when you're here, it's like, okay, well, we know we've won at home. We know our record at home. We know we're very good at home. And that's why you want to get top 4.
Yeah.
You want to be in that top 4 because you get that extra game in case you need it, and that's a huge plus for any team, but especially one like ours, and for the fans that we have.
Getting that win against Philadelphia on decision day to get that top 4 solidified, can you paint the picture of what the message, or like the vibe, I guess, was after for you guys?
Yeah, it was. Obviously, we knew the different scenarios going into it. Realistically, we had to match the 2 teams below us on their results, and
Man, an incredible look. We talked about this earlier. Incredible shot right here for this 1-on-1, but even better 1-on-1 in the conversation. Tim Ream and Danielle Stein ahead of tonight's match against NYCFC. The match is at the bank. You see it right there. It is going to be a great time, a lively crowd, as Carlene mentioned. Wear your jacket, bring a towel. Bring
warm thoughts. Bring warm thoughts.
A poncho. You can't bring an umbrella, I guess. You have to bring a poncho. So yeah, don't listen to me. Don't bring an umbrella. What do I know? So yeah, you can get that full interview right now on our digital platforms. Great interview. Don't want to miss that. All right. So let's switch gears. So we talked about it, and we've been talking about it not only through this afternoon stream, but for days and weeks now at this point. The government shut down. And so the government shut down, forcing SNAP benefits out of the hands of millions of Americans throughout the country. I think we looked at the number earlier, 1.4 million North Carolinians impacted by this if the shutdown continues beginning on November 1st, if the shutdown were to continue through that deadline. We heard from Attorney General Jeff Jackson on this lawsuit against the Trump administration, USDA. We also heard from South Carolina Governor McMaster on SNAP benefits there in South Carolina. And there are organizations and local food banks right now actively working to fill the gap. WCNC Charlotte's Bria Smith is, tell us where you're live, Bria. We talked earlier. I know you talked to organizations both in North Carolina and South Carolina. Where are you right now? And what are organizations doing in the Carolinas to help?
Yeah, Nick, it does seem like I've been kind of everywhere, which I have been in a way, speaking to both, South Carolina and North Carolina nonprofits about what they're doing in the midst of all of this. So I'm currently in Charlotte, just outside of Second Harvest Food Bank, where I spoke with the director of Hope of Rock Hill. He literally just minutes ago left from picking up 8 pallets of food in order to supply, their nonprofit there and the work that they're doing in Rock Hill, because he's saying that that this is something that, people are asking and worried about, what's going to happen next if they do not receive their SNAP benefits. And so just this morning alone, within a 2-hour span, they've already fed or given, food to 77 different families. That's a lot of people in just 2 hours. So he says, if this will continue longer than they anticipate, they'll just continue to need to, come out of their own pockets to be able to fund food for these families.
And Bria, before I let you go, how difficult is it for the workers there? Thinking about like Second Harvest Food Bank, not only just coming up with enough resources, but constantly hearing these stories of families struggling.
Yeah, well, it does add a little bit more pressure on them annually. This is something that they do annually, year-round, so they're constantly preparing to be able to provide these resources to families and individuals who do need assistance regularly. But I did also speak to Nourish Up CEO earlier this morning, who says, now they're just going to have to find different ways and different avenues to be able to provide these families. But they did reassure that they will continue to try to feed everyone as possible, while they continue to try to allocate, supplies and food, but just making sure that families don't go hungry. That's their main concern. And also, that individuals just reach out to their state lawmakers, maybe donate food if they can, go to the grocery store, pick up a few extra items, and then also even host their own food drives is what they're encouraging people to do in the midst of all of this, Nick.
Yeah, every little helps. All right, Bria, thank you for your time. You can catch Bria's story at 4 and 6 o'clock this evening. Bria, again, thank you. All right, so we are going to take a quick break, a step aside. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. As we continue to mention and highlight, it is day 28 of the government shutdown. We heard from, again, Governor McMaster out in South Carolina, Attorney General Jeff Jackson in North Carolina, all revolving around the impacts and the fallout from this shutdown. We want to head now to Capitol Hill. What's happening right now, Democratic lawmakers are speaking. We heard from House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries moments ago. Let's take a listen in to what's being said.
Have to do. with the bill? Well, the continuing resolution is 91 pages. 67 of those pages are about health care and so forth. So it is the appropriate conversation, and given that those notices are going out now, that we need to deal with it now. So we are waiting for them to come to the table to reopen the government, and honestly, if we can get my 3 other colleagues, we would move on appropriations bills. But they have refused to come to the table since the outset of this debate.
Yeah, Donald Trump and Republicans have taken a my way or the highway approach from the very beginning of this Congress. And we've maintained, led by Rosa DeLauro, that we want to sit down and negotiate a bipartisan spending agreement, now reopen the government, but at the same period of time, address the Republican health care crisis, which has been devastating on everyday Americans and hardworking American taxpayers throughout this year, including the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health centers closing because of Republican policies and their one big ugly bill throughout America, including in rural parts of the country. The American people now confront the possibility of a $536 billion cut to Medicare because of what Republicans did in their one big ugly bill if Congress doesn't act by the end of this year, and now because Republicans refuse to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, tens of millions of Americans right now are receiving notices as we approach open enrollment on November 1st, indicating to them that their premiums are going to skyrocket in ways that will make it unaffordable for them to see a doctor when they need to see one, when their children needs to see one, when their family members need to see one. This is a health care crisis that Republicans have visited on the American people, and it has to be dealt with decisively. We're now heading into a SNAP crisis. As Angie Craig and Rosa DeLauro have so powerfully articulated, that is a man-made Republican crisis because Donald Trump has decided that he wants to force millions of Americans, including possibly 16 million children, to experience hunger so they can continue their my way or the highway approach toward driving their right-wing extreme agenda down the throats of the American people. Unacceptable.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Today is the first day air traffic controllers will go without a paycheck. You're speaking about SNAP right now. We also have questions around how troops are going to get paid. At the crux of your fight against the Republican bill is the ACA, is health care. Are you concerned that these other issues, these other pressing issues like SNAP, the air traffic controllers not getting paid, troops not getting paid, are you concerned that that will start to dominate the conversation or dominate the consciousness of America, that the ACA conversation kind of gets pushed to the wayside?
Well, we've made clear from the very beginning that we want to enact a bipartisan spending agreement that meets the needs of the American people, that improves their quality of life, that drives down the high cost of living here in this country, where costs haven't gone down, as Trump promised on day one. Costs have gone up. And we set out from the very beginning in September that we want to reach a spending agreement that's bipartisan, that meets the needs of the American people in 3 areas: their health, their safety, and their economic well-being. And that, of course, includes making sure that they can put food on the table in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Donald Trump and Republicans have launched an all-out assault on the American people from the very beginning of this presidency. And it's cruel, and it's punitive, and it's hurting everyday Americans. We want to reopen the government. Republicans in the House have been on vacation now for 5 consecutive weeks. They've canceled votes for 5 consecutive weeks. This is extraordinary. If we reached an agreement, they wouldn't even be here to pass one because they want to keep the government closed. And we're just going to continue to urge them to come to the negotiating table so we can reach the type of bipartisan spending agreement that the American people deserve. I don't know if Angie or Rosie wants anything.
I would just add to that. Look, the time is now that people are looking at what their health care costs are going to go up. November 1st, when people open their portal in Minnesota on MNsure, the average increase for a 60-year-old couple is going up $15,000 next year. Think about that. How can Americans fit another $15,000 into their budget? They can't even afford their housing and their health care and their grocery costs today. This is a moment in time where we have to have the moral courage as Democrats and Republicans to come together to make sure that Americans can stay healthy. People are desperate as they go to renew their health care. It's not in December. It's not next year. It is November 1st, this Saturday. So in terms of being distracted, people are not distracted by the premium increases that they're getting. They are laser focused on what's happening in their own budgets right now.
If I just want to add one more thing is, a young woman in my district, Renee, who I was with on Friday, she got her notice, an increase of $2,000 per month. $24,000 a year for health insurance. Can anybody here pay for that? She can't. Her husband is gravely ill. He doesn't have insurance, etc. These are real stories. But I would say to you that on the food stamp issue, the money is there. Let us not let them get away with saying that they can't do it. They have their political will isn't there to feed the people who rely on the SNAP program, which is the most effective anti-hunger program in the United States of America. They're playing fast and loose with people eating. Can you imagine that? But that's the reality. And you need to talk about that. They just talked to states about not wanting to reimburse. My state of Connecticut yesterday is putting up $3 million. They want to know if they can get reimbursed. This administration has said, no, you can't get reimbursed. But you know what's happened in the past? Because Democrats and Republicans have come together to work on these issues, all the benefits have been paid out, whether it was a reimbursement or it was the benefits that they so deserve and that they qualify for. This is an administration that is lawless at its core, and we cannot let them get away with it.
Yeah.
So we're almost about 3 days out from where the original Democratic CR was set to expire. Can we expect to see a new Democratic CR with a new date and any other potential policy changes?
Well, we'll continue to be in conversation with our Senate Democratic colleagues. We've all held firm to the proposition that we want to reopen the government. We want to negotiate a bipartisan spending agreement. That's our position, and we've maintained it from the very beginning. The problem, the reason why we're in this shutdown, day 28, is that Donald Trump and Republicans continue to maintain a my way or the highway approach, and the American people know it. Which is why the American people have turned against Donald Trump and Republicans, because their policies aren't working. They've gone too far in area after area after area and have not made life better for the American people. So we'll continue to be in dialogue with our Senate Democratic colleagues, but publicly, our position has been the same as our private position, which is we'll sit down anytime, any place with anyone on the other side of the aisle, either here at the Capitol or go back to the White House, where we've repeatedly made clear to President Trump, reconvene the legislative leaders, convene the appropriators, do what leaders do in moments like this, as opposed to being missing in action now for 28 days while finding $40 billion to bail out a right-wing wannabe dictator in Argentina and destroying the historic parts of the White House in real time so that he can construct a ballroom where he will be celebrated like a wannabe king. This is all outrageous stuff. And the American people see it unfolding before their very eyes. And they know that Donald Trump and Republicans have not been serious about doing what is necessary to enact a spending agreement that actually improves the quality of life of hardworking American taxpayers. So.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Republicans have said that the easiest way to fund SNAP is to reopen the government. And you say that Democrats want to reopen the government. Why not call on your Senate colleagues, your Senate Democratic colleagues, to reopen the government and alleviate all the impacts of the shutdown, and then immediately dive headfirst into solving this healthcare crisis? All hands on deck.
As has been the case, and as Angie Craig and Rosa DeLauro, who I'll yield to momentarily, have repeatedly said, the funds have already been allocated by the Congress in a bipartisan way to allow a continuation of SNAP benefits through November 1st, deep into the month of November, and there's additional funds that are available to be reallocated so that not a single person in this country goes hungry. And if that happens beginning on November 1st, it's because Donald Trump and Republicans want the American people to go hungry. And that's the problem that we confront.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And that's exactly what the lawsuit that was filed across this country by, 23 states, District of Columbia, others, says that they.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. That is a live look from Capitol Hill as we hear from Democratic leaders, including, we just heard from House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries regarding the government shutdown. SNAP benefits set to end on November 1st. And it's day 28 of the government shutdown. A lot of federal employees have missed their first paycheck. All right, so we want to shift away from that and we want to go to this. We are following some breaking news into our newsroom. Take a look at this. This is a live look at I-77. This is I-77 northbound. As you see it near Billy Graham Parkway, Clanton Road, there on your screen. So this crash leaving, it looks like two lanes closed.
Well, I think because that lane, one of the lanes is like an entrance or entrance ramp onto 77. That would be the exit 6. And then there's looks like one lane's open.
Okay, it's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell.
But it is like this part of I-77 is difficult because even with one lane, it just makes it hard for traffic to go through. It bottlenecks traffic. So to be specific, if you're familiar with the mile markers, this is mile marker 6. Again, near West Woodlawn Road. So Billy Graham Parkway, Clanton Road.
This is heading to Uptown.
Yes, heading to Uptown. A very busy area, very busy area. So that is happening right now. We'll continue to keep an eye on this as crews work to reopen that lane there on I-77. So, all right, so we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. All right, we want to get back out to some breaking news that we're following. A crash on I-77 North. Take a look at it. This is a live look at the scene. You see, looks like one lane is closed as crews are working to reopen that lane. You see, traffic is bottlenecked, is moving very slowly there. This is just past Billy Graham Parkway, in between Billy Graham Parkway and Clanton Road. So this is headed towards Uptown. Again, this is a tricky area because it's always busy. So if you close down one lane, it's just gonna be at a standstill, a slow moving pace when it comes to traffic. So just be patient when it comes to this crash, when it comes to traffic here.
Both sides too, because
yeah.
Those people are going to be coming around the bend, slowing down, being what's going on.
Yeah, I'm looking at the other side. I'm looking at the southbound lane, and it's moving slow, and there's not a crash on that side of the highway. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that as crews work to reopen lanes there on I-77 northbound between Billy Graham Parkway and Clanton Road. All right, coming back out here again. Thank you for hanging with us this afternoon on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. It's been a busy day, not only here locally but across the nation. Let's go to. Do we want to go back to Capitol Hill? Or do we want to go to California?
Let's go to Capitol Hill.
Okay, let's go back to Capitol Hill, where House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is speaking along with other Dem leaders, talking about the government shutdown. Let's take a listen in.
Afford. And that's why Democrats continue to be in this fight until we win this fight.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. The House Oversight Committee released their report into the former President Biden's auto pen use, and the probe that they investigated. And Attorney General Pam Bondi said that the DOJ will initiate a review of the Biden administration's reported use of the auto pen for pardons. Can I get your reaction to that?
The so-called chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, continues to behave like a malignant clown. We can't point to a single thing that he's actually done to make life better for the American people. Here's what he should investigate if he's investigating presidents or former presidents. Investigate the fact that Donald Trump promised that costs would go down on day one. He promised, Donald Trump, repeatedly, that costs would go down on day one. Costs haven't gone down. They're going up. Inflation moving in the wrong direction, as evidenced by the most recent report that was just issued last week. Housing costs are up, grocery costs are up, child care costs are up, electricity bills are through the roof. And now, because of the Republicans' refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, tens of millions of Americans are about to experience dramatic increases in their health care costs that will force medical bankruptcy on many of them, or they'll have to make a choice between going to see a doctor, putting clothing on their back, paying the rent or mortgage, or putting food on the table. This is what's happening in the United States of America, the wealthiest country in the history of the world. If James Comer wants to investigate something, investigate Donald Trump's lie that he was going to lower costs on day one. I issued a statement with respect to the mayor's race in New York City last Friday. That statement speaks for itself. In terms of the current situation that we find ourselves in relative to hardworking federal employees, we support them and will continue to stand by them. The Trump administration has fired or let go more than 200,000 hardworking federal civil servants this year, prior to the shutdown that they're visiting on the American people. That's what the Trump administration has done. This year, fired more than 200,000 hardworking federal employees. They have been targeting civil servants from the very beginning of this presidency. In fact, members of the Trump administration have said publicly that they want to traumatize federal employees. That's what they've said. That's what the OMB director said. So our position will remain consistent. We want to reopen the government. We want to make sure that every single federal employee gets paid, both the ones who are furloughed and the ones who are essential workers who have been forced by this Trump administration to work without pay because Donald Trump and Republicans continue to keep the government shut down. We know that's their position because House Republicans have canceled votes for 5 consecutive weeks. We know that's the Republican position because the Senate Republican leader continues to bring the same partisan Republican spending bill to the floor for a vote. It's now been brought to the floor 13 times, and it's went down to defeat 13 times because Leader Schumer and Senate Democrats, partnering with House Democrats, have continued to take the same position. We will not support a partisan Republican spending bill that guts the health care of the American people. Third row.
Thanks, sir. I'm curious for your reaction to reports that DHS has purged senior ICE officials and wants to replace them with Border Patrol. Are you concerned that this might signal a shift in how the administration is approaching deportations?
Well, our view with respect to the immigration issue generally is that we support a safe and a strong and a secure border at all times. And that will continue to be important. We have a broken immigration system and it needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed in a comprehensive and bipartisan way. At the same period of time, the American people are understandably horrified at the extremism that the Department of Homeland Security has unleashed on law-abiding immigrant families and communities, separating hardworking mothers from their children, in many instances, children who are American citizens. And so it's our hope that if there's going to be a change in personnel, it's actually to enact a more humane approach rather than what we've seen in community after community throughout the country, including in the Chicago area, which is rightly turning off the American people to the extreme immigration policies of Donald Trump and the Republicans. Yep.
Do you believe Eleanor Holmes Norton should retire, given mounting concerns over her mental fitness for office?
I have not had a recent conversation with Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton. Obviously, she's had a legendary career. Ultimately, it's going to be her decision and the people of the District of Columbia to make that decision as to who's best positioned to represent their interests moving forward. Thanks.
Just piggybacking off an earlier question, regarding the federal workers union, Speaker Johnson earlier today, reportedly on the call with his conference, indicated that he thought that that pressure and the SNAP benefits would force Democrats' hand to adjust. What's your response to his supposition that this may change things? And is there any, in your mind, is there an off-ramp?
Well, Democrats are going to continue to stand up for hardworking federal employees, as we've done throughout the year, in the face of the relentless targeting of civil servants by Donald Trump and his administration. Federal employees know who stands on their side. It's us, House and Senate Democrats. They've lived the experience of the Trump administration going after them in the most horrific ways possible since January 20th, and we, as House and Senate Democrats, are going to continue to stand up for them. We're going to continue to stand up for nutritional assistance. It's the Republicans who cut $186 billion, the largest cut to SNAP in American history. They just did this in July as part of their one big ugly bill so they could reward their billionaire donors and continue to subsidize the lifestyles of the rich and shameless. It's out of control. That's their track record. That's the Republican track record. And of course, we're going to continue to stand up for the health care of the American people. And I don't know why Republicans think this is a game. This is not a game. This is about the health and the well-being, economically, of the American people. And Democrats are going to stay in this fight until we win this fight for working class Americans, for middle class Americans, and for hardworking American taxpayers. Thank you all.
All right, so that is a press conference that just wrapped up on day 28 of the government shutdown. We heard from House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and we also heard from other leaders within the Democratic Party. So on your top right, while we still have the shot up, we are taking a live look, Montego Bay, as Hurricane Melissa is barreling down on Jamaica. Bottom right, lanes closed there on I-77 north near mile marker 6. You see it there between Billy Graham Parkway and Clanton Road. So we'll continue to keep an eye on both of those shots. But for now, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We want to go now live to Sacramento, California, where California Governor Gavin Newsom and Attorney General in California, Rob Bonta, are announcing some sort of legal action against the Trump administration. Let's take a listen to that.
And to continue to support our leaders in Congress, House and Senate, to hold the line on behalf of Californians and the American people to support those subsidies. Not only support them in the short run, but support extending those subsidies beyond November of 2026.
And we have time for just one more question.
Mr. Bonta, are you staying out of the governor's race still? Is that still a plan for you?
Well, I haven't said I wasn't going to run for a third term.
I am staying out of the governor's race. I am honored, grateful, feel it's a privilege to serve as AG anytime, and particularly in these times. This is the most important moment and the most important job I've ever had. I want to give everything I have to it, my time, my attention, my passion, my energy, my focus. We have more than one case a week. We're fighting for the future of our democracy, rights, protections, the rule of law, our Constitution, and I want to be central to that fight. on behalf of the people of this great state and this great country. So I'm completely focused on being the best AG I can.
And if I did have a third term, I wouldn't want to lose him as AG. He's doing an exceptional job, so I like that answer. Even if you thought that was a political line, I don't know. You may have thought that. I don't know. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so that was that press conference there. We called it towards the tail end, but I believe this is the same legal action that North Carolina is taking, or Attorney General Jeff Jackson is taking against the Trump administration regarding SNAP benefits. We'll have more details on that. But again, that press conference just wrapped up there in Sacramento, California. California Governor Gavin Newsom, along with Rob Bonta, there at the podium. All right, so we want to go now to D.C. We're happening right now. This has been happening for a while now. The Senate Judiciary Political Violence hearing is taking place right now. So let's take a listen in on what's being said.
For examples of this alarming trend, one need look no further than the mostly peaceful burning of various American cities throughout the so-called Summer of Love in 2020. Or the coddling of pro-Hamas and anti-Semitic mobs by university administrators just in the last year or two. And even the disgusting attempts to rationalize, excuse, and in many cases even praise the cold-blooded assassination of Charlie Kirk through grotesque distortions of his past public statements and otherwise. This must end. Today, this hearing gives us a real chance to reflect upon and confront this very disturbing and building trend within our society. It's not enough to state that political violence is wrong. We must expose it, call it out where it exists, and root out the forces that tend to enable it. Now, to those who would cite the First Amendment somehow in defense of actions that cannot be defended on their own merits, let us be very clear. Violence is not protected speech. Neither is incitement to violence or funding of violence or facilitation of violence, any more so than a conspiracy to commit violent acts would be protected by the First Amendment. These things are not. They are analytically distinct, legally, constitutionally distinct from speech. They're not covered by the First Amendment. Indeed, the preservation of free speech itself depends on our ability to shield peaceful discourse from those who would silence dissent through any form of violence. Look, modern American society is the greatest civilization the world has ever known. Many on the other side of the aisle have decided that they ought to repeatedly engage in inflammatory, sometimes irresponsible rhetoric that creates permission, sort of establishes a permission structure, you might say, for violence directed at our civil institutions. As the Trump administration works tirelessly to safeguard Americans from this wave of criminal, illegal aliens that have come through over the last 4.5 years, many Democrat leaders have fought back tooth and nail, describing federal law enforcement as, quote, a quote, modern-day Gestapo, as slave patrols, as thugs, and as a collective terror force. Despite multiple assassination attempts against Trump, it was and remains today fashionable in leftist circles to compare President Trump to Hitler and smear his supporters as fascists. What has been the result of this? Well, across the country, ICE agents have been under attack, personally, not just as a group. At an ICE facility in Texas, officers were attacked, with one even being shot in the neck. Investigators later found evidence of left-wing anarchist and anti-government ideology, anti-ICE slogans, Antifa imagery, and online discussions specifically targeting federal agencies. And yet again, much of the left either ignored the story altogether or blamed the government for provoking the attack, and leftists in the media, meanwhile, did at best nothing to stop it, and in other cases, tended to foment it. This violence toward the executive branch is not itself isolated. In 2022, a California man boarded a plane to Maryland with a pistol with ammunition, and with a fairly distinct plan. His goal? To assassinate Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh because he disagreed with the leaked ruling in the Dobbs case that would go on to overturn Roe v. Wade. He disagreed with that ruling, therefore he decided he had to kill this justice. He was consumed by far-left ideology and the belief that violence is justified somehow when our system does not result in the outcomes desired by the left. He later told investigators that he wanted to, quote unquote, give his life by killing Brett Kavanaugh himself. That is not activism. That is radicalism. That is extremism. It is driven by the same ideology that calls violent protest resistance and dressing it up in as many euphemisms as people can find. Shockingly, some leftists suggest, almost as a matter of routine, that daring to question their misguided beliefs is akin to perpetuating violence against certain favored groups or disfavored groups. I hope we can find bipartisan consensus in condemning all political violence without reservation and without regard to the ideology of the person at whom the violence might be directed. To overcome the very worst instincts of human nature's somewhat natural tendency toward violence, although it's a tendency that can and must be suppressed in any free civilization, we must first remember that we are one nation and one people under God, united by bonds far stronger than any passing political moment or cause. Political violence, regardless of the alleged justification, regardless of the political beliefs of those embracing it or opposing it, will never and must never be tolerated by this body or by the United States of America. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Would the witnesses please rise? I will now administer the oath. Would you raise your right hand, please, and answer this question? Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to introduce our first witness. It's Mr. Wolf. Thank you for being here, Mr. Wolf. And understand that you have a very distinguished career. You serve as America First Policy Institute's Executive Vice President, Chief Strategy Officer, and Chair of AFPI's Homeland Security Immigration. And I also understand prior to that, you were Acting Secretary of Homeland, Acting Secretary of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And during your time at DHS, you successfully navigated an incredible number of global and domestic challenges to the nation's security, including COVID-19, civil unrest, numerous border and immigration crises, and historic natural disasters and threats to global aviation security. And understand, too, that you serve now as president and founder of Wolf Global Advisors. Welcome. You may proceed.
Thank you, Chairman Schmidt, Ranking Member Welch, and members of the subcommittee for the opportunity to testify today. Political speech and violence should never go hand in hand. I'm here today because I've seen this play out firsthand over the last several years and certainly during my time in government service. Let me be clear, I support those who lawfully exercise their constitutional rights, but when speech turns to violence, we must hold those committing violence accountable. The increase in politically motivated violence over the last several years has been driven largely by radical left-wing extremist groups and individuals that believe violence is a legitimate means to achieve political goals. A recent analysis by the Center for Strategic and International Studies shows that, quote, left-wing violence has risen in the last 10 years, and left-wing incidents in 2025 are on track to reach 30-year highs. A recent Rutgers University poll found that 55%, over half of the respondents of left of center said it would be somewhat justified to murder President Trump, and 48% said the same about Elon Musk. According to another recent poll, 1 in 4 people on the far left believe that violence can be justified. That is 1 in 4. The data paints a disturbing picture that some on the left, especially younger adults, are increasingly supportive of violence as a form of protest. In 2020, as Acting Secretary of Homeland Security, I witnessed 100 consecutive nights of violence in Portland, Oregon. Every night, hundreds of violent anarchists surrounded the Hatfield Federal Courthouse. They hurled commercial-grade fireworks, sledgehammers, concretes, and even IEDs at our federal officers. They set fire, they vandalized property, and assaulted law enforcement. Their goal was not peaceful protest. It was destruction, coercion, and intimidation. At the time, I pleaded with local officials, including the governor and the mayor there in Portland, to help protect our officers, and time again, they refused to act. They chose politics over public safety. The result was more than 280 injuries to law enforcement officers and millions of dollars of damage to federal property and to local businesses. Back then, we saw public figures attacking federal law enforcement officers, calling them stormtroopers, Gestapo, and thugs. Comparing American law enforcement to Nazi Germany was irresponsible, reckless, and dangerous then, as it remains so today. Unfortunately, this disgusting rhetoric and behavior has only intensified. Once again, we're seeing violent attacks against law enforcement officers, and again, public figures are describing them as Nazis. The difference between 2020 and now, however, is that the Trump administration knows what to expect and is fighting aggressively to hold these violent offenders accountable. The administration has rightfully designated Antifa as domestic terrorists, has begun a whole-of-government investigation into the financing and resourcing of this group, and has charged Antifa members with providing material support for terrorism. And despite what the mainstream media insists, groups like Antifa are not disorganized. They are increasingly organized, funded, and networked. They plan online, they operate anonymously, and execute in ways that make detection difficult. Make no mistake, their lack of structure is not a feature. It is a feature, not a bug. And it is designed to evade accountability and prosecution. Critics argue because they have no formal leadership, they shouldn't be treated as domestic terrorists. I believe this completely misses the point. This decentralized model mirrors what we have seen from jihadist networks, cyber criminals, and other criminal groups. Their lack of a hierarchy makes them more dangerous. This past summer, the American people witnessed multiple anti-fascist inspired attacks and threats on law enforcement, journalists, and civilians. This includes threats against ICE officers, other government officials, and even Attorney General Bondi just yesterday. Tragically, this also includes the sickening assassination of Charlie Kirk. I want to state this as plainly as I can. Enforcing immigration laws passed by Congress almost 60 years ago, is in no way, shape, or form fascism. Every sovereign nation has a right to choose who is allowed to legally enter the country. Throwing around words like fascist and Nazi not only cheapens history, but it fuels increasing hostility towards law enforcement, journalists, and ordinary citizens. The rise in political violence presents a grave threat to our constitutional order and rule of law. The federal government has a duty and a responsibility to respond. We must continue to give law enforcement the tools and the resources they need, allow ICE to operate safely in courthouses and jails across the country, increase penalties for those that dox federal officers, and expand joint task forces to dismantle. We owe it to the families who have lost loved ones, including Erica Kirk and others who continue to grieve, to ensure that their calls for accountability are answered and that our nation restores the respect for law and order. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. By the way, our chairman has had to go vote, and I'm going to have to go do that after I introduce Mr. Braniff. Mr. Braniff is the Director of Polarization and Extremism Research and Innovation Lab at American University, where he's working on research and programming to prevent violent extremism, targeted violence, and the drivers of polarization in American society. I also want to note that he's a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point and served as a company commander in the U.S. Army. Mr. Braniff.
Chairman Schmidt, Ranking Member Welch, distinguished senators, thank you for your leadership on this critical issue and for the opportunity to testify today. 26 years ago, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution. I've spent my career honoring that oath as an Army officer, a terrorism researcher, and leading prevention programs at the Department of Homeland Security. It's a lifelong commitment to protect kids and schools, families and faith communities, public spaces and workplaces, and the democratic institutions and freedoms our founders gave us. This isn't about politics or party for me. It never has been. I'm here representing a community of like-minded practitioners, law enforcement, mental health, educators, veterans, who work every day to prevent violence before it destroys families and communities. We're united by a simple belief: targeted violence is preventable, and American communities deserve better than waiting for the next attack. We should all condemn targeted violence. It's tragic, unethical, and illegal. I want to start by acknowledging the threats, the loss, and the fear that too many Americans and too many elected officials have experienced. But we should also not mistake the blame game for advancing solutions. Solutions must be based on data and evidence. Solutions must focus on preventing political violence in the first place, instead of reacting after the damage has been done. And solutions must reinforce our constitutionally protected freedoms, not erode them. To inform policymaking, Congress legislated that the executive branch provide data on terrorism and targeted violence. DHS contracted with START at the University of Maryland to produce the T2V data set, although the administration abruptly canceled funding in March. START data demonstrate clearly that violent events do not fit neatly into any one ideological category, and that there has been an alarming increase in attacks and credible plots in the United States, including over a 2,000% increase in mass casualty plots since the early 1990s. We average more than 2.5 attacks and credible plots per day in the U.S., and over 50% of them succeed. They occurred in over 1,200 U.S. towns and cities. This year, compared to last year, terrorism events are up 67%, and fatalities are up nearly 150%. Americans are dying from ISIS-inspired, white supremacist, anti-Semitic, anti-government, anti-vax, anti-law enforcement, and nihilistic attacks. So these data highlight 3 challenges that we need to solve for. The volume problem. With 2.6 events per day, we are at risk of accepting targeted violence as inevitable. It is not. It is preventable. The structural gap problem. These plots succeed 55% of the time. The structural gap is due to appropriate limitations placed on criminal justice investigations to protect privacy, civil liberties, freedom of speech, and freedom of association. So we can't fill the structural gap with criminal justice-only solutions and maintain the freedoms enshrined in our Constitution. And third, the reality is that targeted violence manifests in many different forms of terrorism, hate crime, and school shootings. Any approach that only addresses one manifestation will be both operationally ineffective and fiscally inefficient. At DHS, I led prevention programs that partnered federal resources with local teams, sheriffs who knew their counties, schools who knew their students, mental health professionals who knew their patients, pastors who knew their congregations, local Americans protecting local communities. This allowed us to engage in early interventions that addressed all of the challenges I mentioned. Volume, we supported nearly 1,200 interventions for people on the pathway to violence, 0 committed violence while in the program. We filled the structural gap and bridged to public safety. In 94% of the cases, the individuals received support from mental health professionals, social workers, or other helping professionals. 6% were referred to law enforcement. Most of the individuals, 70%, were not yet self-medicating on any one specific ideology when they came to us, just angry, isolated, and struggling. And yet, without indexing our programs on any one ideology, the intervention succeeded across all ideologies, making this approach both effective and cost-effective. Nearly 1,200 people at risk of hurting themselves and others. But before families had to bury loved ones, we invested in prevention instead. Political violence threatens our constitutional order, but not just the violence, also how we respond to it. Whether we choose to do what works, quietly investing in scaling up prevention efforts, or we feed political polarization that makes Americans less safe and erodes our Constitution. Americans deserve, and the Constitution demands, the former. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Michael Knowles. Michael Knowles is the celebrated host of the Michael Knowles Show on the Daily Wire, as well as the Book Club on PragerU. He has published 2 #1 national best-selling books, including Speechless, A History and Analysis of the American Free Speech Tradition, Michael has received numerous awards, including the Conservative Mind Award from the American Conservative Magazine and an honorary doctorate of Humane Letters from Ave Maria University. Michael is a graduate of Yale and has lectured at universities and research institutions around the world. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman Schmidt, Ranking Member Welch, and all the members of this committee. The ranking member suggested that we condemn political violence, which surely we must all do. But then he suggested that we not try to pinpoint exactly which side the violence comes from. This seems to me confusing and misbegotten, as one cannot solve a problem if one does not know where the problem lies. In light of the murder of my friend Charlie Kirk by a leftist assassin, I am gratified to see that at least some members of our federal legislature are now confronting the consistent and escalating pattern of left-wing terrorism in the country. Lest I be accused of partisan invective, on September 23rd, no less an emblem of American liberalism than The Atlantic magazine published an article citing a recent study from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, admitting that the left is more violent today than the right. Less honest liberals, including members of Congress, continue to deny this fact. Democrat Congressman Seth Moulton, for example, reacted to Charlie's assassination by blaming the right. Congressman Moulton claimed that 3/4 of political violence in the United States comes from the right, while only 4% comes from the left. That claim struck me, as it probably does many of you, as suspect. So I looked into just a few recent examples that came to mind of prominent left-on-right violence. The Covenant School Massacre in Nashville, in which a trans-identifying shooter murdered Christian school children after outlining her ideological motivations. According to authorities, there was no ideological motive there. Go figure. The Black Lives Matter riots, overtly leftist demonstrations that left dozens of people dead and over $1 billion worth of property damage. Likewise, those fail to show up on registers of left-wing political violence. Even an attack by Antifa that targeted me personally, as well as conservative college students for our political views, appeared in official records and data sets as nothing more than obstructing law enforcement. It turns out the left commits relatively little political violence when you don't count the political violence that the left commits. I am here today to speak about that single illustrative incident. On April 18, 2023, I was invited to participate in a debate at the University of Pittsburgh on the topic of transgenderism. Before the debate, several hundred left-wing protesters gathered outside the Student Center, many dressed uniformly in black with face coverings. They lit the street on fire while burning me in effigy with a little Hitler mustache painted on my face. All because I hold the view, as most Americans do, that men cannot become women. Buildings in the area were placed on a soft lockdown. As the Pittsburgh Bureau of Fire put out my burning effigy, an Antifa operative named Brian DePippa, hiding behind his wife, Crystal, rolled 2 smoke bombs under police barricades. Attendees scattered while demonstrators chanted, "Fascists go home." DePippa then threw a lit firework into a group of police officers protecting the building. The explosion injured several officers, including severe and life-altering injuries to a female officer. The debate was forced to end early after campus police determined that the protests outside were becoming even more destructive. The campus issued a safety emergency notification. Despite popular efforts to deny the existence of organized left-wing terrorism, Brian and Crystal DePippa were not merely 2 citizens protesting a speaker with whom they disagreed. Things just got a little out of hand. No. They are members of an extremist cell, a cell that meets at an anarchist bookshop, the sort of venue that operates as training grounds for left-wing terror attacks. Brian DePippa repeatedly set off TSA screeners for explosive material on his body. The Torch Antifa network has claimed the DePippas as members and raised money for them through a tax-exempt nonprofit organization. Imagine. Thanks to a courageous FBI agent who happened to be on the scene, the Department of Justice was impelled to bring charges. Unfortunately, our justice system gave them only a slap on the wrist. I think we should all be able to agree that throwing an explosive at a group of people is no mere minor indiscretion. That is a very serious crime. That's attempted murder, the kind of crime that merits life in prison. Instead, our justice system sentenced Brian DePippa to minimal jail time for obstructing law enforcement. His wife got off with probation. The federal government must act now to stop the consistent and accelerating trend of leftist terrorism. For a legislator to deny the threat and neglect the remedy might once have been chalked up to ignorance. Today, it is nothing less than complicity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce the next witness. Danielle Hodges was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, studied at George Mason University, currently studying at the University of Virginia, joined the Virginia National Guard in 2012 and was honorably discharged after a 6-year contract. He joined the Metropolitan Police Department in 2014 and has served the city of Washington, D.C. as a police officer since earning awards, citations, and commendations. On January the 6th, 2021, Officer Hodges responded with his colleagues to the U.S. Capitol to help defend against the mob who was attempting to stop the transfer of power. Officer Hodges was injured during the attack, but returned to full duty weeks later. In 2022, he testified before the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack and has since been honored with the Presidential Citizens Medal by President Joe Biden for his heroic service to the nation during the assault on the Capitol. Thank you, Mr. Hodges.
Thank you. I'm speaking in my personal capacity. However, I draw upon my experiences as one of the few police officers in this country who has policed both the protests and riots of 2020, as well as the insurrection of January 6, 2021. I am intimately familiar with political violence, as when I fought to defend the United States Capitol and many of your very lives, I was beaten, bloodied, crushed, with my eye gouged and my skull smashed with my own baton. Political violence is a worthy topic for discussion. However, the press release I saw from the subcommittee chair made it clear that this was not going to be an honest consideration of various causes and effects, but rather a ham-fisted attempt to propagate the unsupported notion that liberal ideology is the greatest origin of modern political violence. This is particularly galling to me since every single member of the majority on the subcommittee has either contributed to one of the most infamous examples of conservative political violence of our age or the protection of its perpetrators. Every majority member who could do so voted to acquit Donald Trump during a second impeachment, and now we find ourselves in a new horrific age of political violence, one where it is carried out by the state itself. A permanent resident was arrested without a warrant and is being threatened with deportation simply for his politics. A Tennessee man was arrested and is being held on $2 million bail for sharing a Trump meme on social media. Members of Congress have been denied access to ICE facilities despite the law granting them unannounced oversight rights. These detentions and prohibitions are all grounded in the threat of deadly force and violence, are absurd or outright illegal, and politically motivated by right-wing ideology. The fact that these actions are carried out by agents of the state doesn't make them acceptable, it makes them far worse. The current administration is doing whatever it can to downplay the threat that right-wing violence presents to the United States, including literally erasing data. Between September 12th and the 13th of this year, the Department of Justice deleted their own study from their website, which came to the conclusion that right-wing extremism poses a much greater threat than left-wing extremism. I quote now the opening paragraph of this National Institute of Justice report published just last year. Quote, militant, nationalistic, white supremacist, violent extremism has increased in the United States. In fact, the number of far-right attacks continues to outpace all other types of terrorism and domestic violence extremism. Since 1990, far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left or radical Islamist extremists, including 227 events that took more than 520 lives. In this same period, far-left extremists committed 42 ideologically motivated attacks that took 78 lives. A recent threat assessment by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security concluded that domestic violent extremists are an acute threat and highlighted a probability that COVID-19 pandemic-related stressors, long-standing ideological grievances related to immigration, and narratives surrounding electoral fraud will continue to serve as a justification for violent actions. There will always be those who seek to further their own political agenda through extra-legal violence, and that is what law enforcement is for. But to reduce the risk of the population at large from falling into radicalization, the solution is simple. It's unfettered democracy. One of democracy's greatest assets is how, when unsullied, it provides a mechanism for everyone to have their voice heard. And when people believe their government speaks for them in some manner, then they're less apt to seek violent means to accomplish their political agendas. So make voting easier, not harder. Stop gerrymandering people into oblivion. Stand on the strength of your ideals, not the depth of your donors' pockets. Stop shopping for judges and start seeking ideas that withstand scrutiny from any political ideology. When you tell the people that an election was stolen from them, they will take up arms against their neighbors without a shred of evidence, I know. But if you tell them brilliant political rhetoric is their birthright and civic engagement is their privilege, they'll instead take up the book and the pen, and we'll all be richer for it. And when you, just so you know that this is the helmet that U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick wore on January 6, 2021, and he died the following day. The family member just got back that today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. Next up is Kyle Scheidler, is the Director and Senior Analyst for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism at the Center for Security Policy, where he conducts research and analysis on domestic threats to the U.S. homeland and an emphasis on the doctrines which fuel terrorism and shape the variety of kinetic and non-kinetic threats to America's security. He's briefed senior U.S. government officials, members of Congress, federal, state, and local law enforcement officers, and testified before the U.S. Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution and the Canadian Senate Standing Committee on National Security and Defense. He is the author of Understanding Black Identity Extremism, Considerations for Law Enforcement, and editor of Unmasking Antifa, 5 Perspectives on a Growing Threat, and a contributing author to Saudi Arabia and the Global Islamic Terrorist Network. His writing has appeared at The Federalist, The Hill, FoxNews.com, and the Claremont Review of Books, amongst others. He's a graduate of Boston University and a Lincoln Fellow with the Claremont Institute. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Welch, distinguished senators. I would like to thank you for the invitation to testify today about the threat our country faces from growing political violence. In my capacity at the Center for Security Policy, one of the things I am most proud of is our program to provide educational briefings to law enforcement officers at the federal, state, and local levels. And for the 5 years of this program's operation, the #1 most requested briefing topic that we have been asked to provide has been on the topic of Antifa and related left-wing extremist groups. The reason it has been the most requested topic is not because, contrary to media reports, Antifa does not exist. America's law enforcement knows it exists because they see the effects every day. The reason it is the most requested topic is because they cannot get accurate and quality information about the threat. Until recently, the federal government has failed to define the extensive nature of this threat and has demonstrated a history of dismissing or reducing charges against left-wing extremists. But despite this failing, we have seen convictions for acts of political violence by Antifa members who were identified as such. In 2021, officers and citizens were injured in a violent, pre-planned riot carried out by Antifa. The San Diego District Attorney successfully secured convictions against 11 Antifa members, including on charges of conspiracy to riot. In 2023, the state of Florida successfully sued Antifa members under the FACE Act, securing civil fines and felony pleas for their attack on pregnancy crisis centers. This is just one case, but in the 5 months after the Dobbs decision was leaked, more than 100 churches, pregnancy resource centers, and pro-life organizations across the country were attacked. Mr. Knowles has already mentioned the case against Brian DePippa and the federal government's guilty plea, but I think it is worth adding that Mr. DePippa was also the web creator for It's Going Down, an Antifa website which has for years published both ideological manifestos and tactical instructions for aspiring Antifa members, including a 2007 Forming an Antifa Group manual, which I first brought to the attention of this committee when I testified before it in August of 2020. But what is Antifa? Well, as a recent Department of Justice indictment accurately describes, quote, Antifa is a militant enterprise made up of networks of individuals and small groups ascribing to a revolutionary anarchist or autonomous Marxist ideology, which explicitly calls for the overthrow of the United States government, law enforcement authorities, and system of law. Antifa adherents have espoused insurrection and advocated violence to affect the policy and conduct of the U.S. government by intimidation and coercion. That's a good working definition, which would bring U.S. law enforcement into line with the definitions which are utilized by other Western governments, which also have an Antifa threat. That would include Germany and Sweden. These networks of small direct action groups are connected through ideologically aligned organizations, online platforms, and support networks, which provide significant amounts of material support. But much of this material support is in the form of services rather than financial transactions. One example, the website Abolition Media posts communiques from the PFLP, the ELN, the PKK, and the MPA, all of them designated communist terror groups. That alone is actionable material support for terrorism. But it also posts claims of responsibility for anarchist arson attacks and propaganda on behalf of Antifa members currently in prison for violent attacks in the United States, Germany, Chile, Greece, and Hungary. The site distributes calls for actions and organizes efforts for Antifa groups across international borders, and even posted an anarchist manual discussing the value of, and I quote, complex coordinated terrorist attacks. If this site were promoting and advocating violence for al-Qaeda, there would be absolutely no question in the minds of U.S. authorities that it serves as a media arm for a terrorist organization. According to a recent article by journalist Hudson Crozier, Abolition Media is just one of 100 such websites hosted on No Blogs, a blogging suite provided by the Italy-based Autistici Inventi Collective, which provides websites, emails, digital encryption tools to Antifa and related left-wing extremist groups, all while hiding their personal data from law enforcement. Very similarly, the International Antifa Defense Fund has distributed over $250,000 to 800 Antifa members across 26 countries, including not just for legal support, but up to 20% has gone to security improvements and emergency relocation costs for Antifa members. It would be a reasonable avenue of investigation to determine if funds have gone to help fugitive Antifa members avoid arrest. I look forward to working with the committee on ways U.S. policy and legislation might address the threat posed by Antifa and related left-wing extremist groups.
Thank you. The chair will recognize Ranking Member of the Judiciary Committee, Senator Durbin, for his opening remarks.
I thank Senator Schmidt for that courtesy. At the outset, I want to recognize law enforcement who are here today, including those who defended the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, and the family members of those who are no longer with us. Ken Sicknick, brother of fallen officer Brian Sicknick, is here. He reminds us, and I quote, "The simple act of not letting the events of that day be whitewashed, revised, or forgotten is more important than anyone can ever know." That statement by Mr. Sicknick rings true, painfully true today. This hearing examines a critical issue, political violence in America. I've said before over and over from this podium and will repeat, violence is not acceptable, whatever the source or origin. I do not believe that one party owns the right to say it's the other party's fault. It is the fault of both parties in differing degrees, and it's our fault if we try to whitewash that reality. To seriously address this problem, we must be honest. We must start with the facts, not with partisan conclusions.
Right, you've been listening into a Senate hearing where leaders are talking about political violence and hearing from people who have experienced it and working on solutions. Also, of course, we are paying attention to Hurricane Melissa. You're looking up in the top right there. You can see the eye of the storm now fully inland. So we'll be watching very closely over the next few hours to hopefully get some more information about what that impact has done. And then on the right bottom corner there, you can see earlier that lanes were closed near mile marker 6 on I-77 northbound. Things have picked up a little bit, but yeah, still looks like police are blocking at least one lane. So definitely a lot to pay attention to. We're going to get to some more local headlines when we come back in about 2 minutes. Welcome back to Live Impact News. Julie Kay here, just past 3:30 in the Live Impact studio. I've got some live events that we want to get to happening now. This is out of Newport News. You may remember Abigail Zwerner. She was a teacher that was shot by a student in her classroom, a 6-year-old student. This was back in 2023. She's now in the midst of a civil trial in a Newport News Circuit Court. This is in Virginia, near Norfolk, the Virginia Beach area, if you're familiar. There she is now. So these are the opening statements that we're going to pay close attention to, but of course this is just the beginning of what might be a long trial.
Can you raise your right hand for us, please?
Raise your right hand.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks.
Do you swear that the testimony that you are about to give will be the truth and the truth and nothing but the truth after that?
All right, thank you. Come up, sit here, please.
Around here, just watch your step.
Good afternoon, Julie. Can you state your name, please, for the jury, and then spell it for the court reporter, please?
Sure. Julie Zwerner, Julie Zwerner.
And can you tell the jury what your relationship to Abby is?
Yeah, Abby is my middle child.
And tell the jury a little bit about your family. How many children do you have?
Okay. Have 3 children. Daniel is the oldest. 16 months after he was born, I had twin girls, Abby and her sister Hannah.
Okay. And tell the jury, too, a little bit about yourself. You were a teacher for some time, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, spent 23 years in the classroom.
And what are you doing right now, currently, for your employment?
I'm back in a school as the registrar in an elementary school. So left the classroom, but still in an elementary school doing what I think I'm good at, record keeping and crunching numbers.
And can you tell the jury a little bit about your daughter, her career path, why she became a teacher?
Yeah, well, ever since kindergarten, I was in Abby and Hannah's school. They were in the same grade, of course, being twins. So when they were in elementary school, I was a part of their school. Through their graduation of high school. So I taught elementary, then I moved to high school, and I'd always been a teacher in her school. I do think that Abby kind of grew to love the profession. She decided to go to college to be a teacher and earned her master's degree from James Madison. She did a 5-year program to be a teacher. Part of that decision-making process, she did some shadowing at West Point Elementary, where she spent some time in classrooms and kind of decided, yeah, this is what I want to do. Think I'd be good at this. Also at James Madison, she worked part-time in a preschool and kind of learned that she did love the little ones.
And I'm going to share with the jury right now, read a picture that you can tell us about from her graduation when you see it. We'll share with the jury.
Oh, you want me to talk about that?
Yes.
Yeah, that was that was her graduation at James Madison.
And can you publish it to the jury, please? Thank you.
Hold on. Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, what number are we giving this?
And this will be plaintiff's 90A. 90A.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge.
So without objection, published.
Thank you.
Okay. I mean, I see the big smile. Just so proud and happy to have accomplished what she accomplished, looking right at the camera.
And that was the day of her graduation?
Mm-hmm. Yep, the ceremony at James Madison for her school.
And so on that day, did she know she wanted to be a teacher and that was her plan?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She was already well on the path. She just had student teaching left, like that final year student teaching.
And where did she do her student teaching at?
She did the first part up in Harrisonburg. I believe it was a 3rd grade classroom, and then she was able to do the second half in Williamsburg. We lived in West Point at the time, so that was great because she lived at home for that last semester. And that was kind of fun because, you know, we were both teaching, both working on our lesson plans at night and getting our materials prepared and that sort of thing. That was fun.
And can you tell the jury a little about your daughter's interests and her personality before January 6, 2023?
Personality-wise, Abby is kind and gentle, very compassionate, the kind of person that people are very comfortable talking to. She makes friends easily. When she makes a friend, it's a deep friendship. She loves music. She loves nature. She learned to love hiking from her dad. They spent lots of time, all the kids did, with John hiking in the mountains. Funny. Abby's quiet, but just will, out of the blue, say something so dry and funny, catches you off guard. Yeah, and silly.
And I know this is a tough subject, but your husband has passed, her father, correct?
Yeah, it's been 5 years.
5 years. And tell the jury a little bit about, her twin sister was a teacher, correct?
Yeah, Hannah taught for about 2.5 years, up until the time when this incident happened. Hannah did not go back to the classroom after that. But Hannah didn't train or study to be a teacher. She had an English degree, English and musical theater, and she kind of fell into a job because a high school needed an English teacher. So she taught provisionally with a provisional license, which she was, you have 3 years to do that. So she did that. I would not say it was her passion. I definitely feel like Abby, it became her passion. Like she knew that going into college, that that's what she wanted to do. Hannah sort of fell into it.
And how do you know that was
the relevance of her sister's?
And we'll move on, Your Honor, from her sister's education.
All right, I will allow what has been testified to, but ask you to move on.
And you stated it was Abby's passion. Why do you feel that that was Abby's passion, that distinguishment? Why do you feel that that's her passion over her sister?
Just the excitement, the joy, the dedication that she showed toward this. From student teaching on, the Saturdays she would go to yard sales looking for things to put in her classroom. The time that she would spend on her own time after hours creating materials, organizing things. She would light up when she kind of discovered some tricks to teaching reading to young kids, or the science lessons. She was always so excited to share things that, trees or birds or the solar system stars, things like that. That's passion, when you get excited about it. She was excited to be in the classroom and teach those kids.
And Julie, now I want to talk about January 6, 2023. Can you tell the jury where you were at the time that you got a phone call about your daughter?
I was at work. It was the middle of the day, mid-afternoon after lunch. And my phone rang, and I typically don't answer my phone when I'm at work, and I didn't recognize the name or the number, so I ignored it. The phone rang again, and I thought, well, something's going on. Let me answer and see who it is. And the name was Brianna Newton, and I knew who that was, but not in the moment. It didn't occur to me. I mean, it was so out of context.
And real quick, who was that, since you said
Abby's building principal.
Okay.
I'd never met her, but I knew the name, after the fact. But when the phone was ringing, I was at work. I didn't know. I picked it up on the second ring, the second time she called, and she said, Abby's been shot. Just like that, Abby's been shot. And she must have said she's at Riverside. And that was the extent of the conversation. Hung up, literally, grabbed my jacket box bag, went to the next room and told my coworkers, Abby's been shot. And I ran out the door. I ran across the parking lot, got in my car. I was working in Williamsburg. Before I hit the first stoplight, I had called a friend from church. Abby's been shot. Please let our prayer group, no, our Bible study group, called my sister Karen, same thing. Drove to Williamsburg. I don't really remember the trip, but I know I was, driving way faster than I should have to get to the hospital. By the time I was getting close to the hospital, I remember I was hyperventilating and saying, I can't do this again. I can't do this again. I remember that thought.
I just object to that we're not here on this damages. We're here to talk about daughters.
All right. Move it along.
With all due respect, Your Honor.
All I knew is that she had been shot. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know she was alive or not.
And so once you get to the hospital, who greets you at the hospital?
Well, nobody greeted me at the hospital. It was locked down. I didn't know that happened. So I got to the doors and I couldn't get in. And I could see police officers in the emergency room, and I didn't know what was going on. Again, all I knew, Abby'd been shot.
So you didn't know by who, or when, or
no,
where?
I knew nothing. It was about 5 minutes, I'm guessing, when a deputy or a police officer came and let me in, and they didn't tell me anything. They just led me through the emergency room, down some long halls, and I realized we were headed to the sanctuary in the hospital.
Okay. So you ended up being brought to Abby in a room eventually, correct?
Eventually, yes. It was hours later.
Okay. So at that initial time, you didn't know her condition. You weren't sure what was going to happen at that moment.
No. Eventually, I was told she was in surgery, so I knew she was still living. But I didn't really know much at that point.
So describe for the jury when you saw your daughter, what was her appearance like? What was her demeanor like?
She was in pain, all bandaged up, all tubes and machines hooked up to her. Her arm was all wrapped up, and she saw me come through the room and she just said, "Mommy."
And you had shared, she normally doesn't call you Mommy.
Oh, no.
What does she normally call you?
Just Mom.
Yeah.
But I hadn't been Mommy in years.
And when you saw her, was she able to communicate with you?
No, she was pretty out of it. I think she was in a lot of pain and just, her eyes wide, like she was in shock and kind of didn't know what was going on.
And how many days was she in the hospital initially?
Maybe 4. I don't remember. I don't remember how many days she was there.
And tell the jury, when she was released, did she go home with you?
She did. She came to live with me so that I could take care of her. Yeah.
And what was Abby's condition when she was released to you?
When she came to my place, she had a cast, like a, elbow all the way down.
And can we publish?
Big and bulky.
I'm going to put all the other. Okay, thank you. And Your Honor, there is another photo that we'll be submitting as plaintiff's 9DB that I'd like to publish to the jury now.
Yeah, that's it.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Admitted and published.
So you were describing a cast. Do you see the photo in front of you?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Is that Abby on the day she was released from the hospital?
Yeah, because she's got her bag in her lap. We're wheeling her out, it looks like.
It looks like she has a smile on under her mask.
Yeah.
So the cast, the size of that cast, why is it that large? Do you know?
It was all the wrapping.
Okay, and was it swollen?
So, yeah, it was very, very swollen, and all the wrapping. You can even see her fingers are swollen right there. Yeah, and this doesn't show the chest injury. She, has a bullet hole in her chest. The bullet's still in there. So you can't see that in that photo, but those were also part of her injuries.
And when you brought her to her house, what did the care of Abby look like? What did you have to do to help care for her at that time?
Anything that would require two hands. So she needed help dressing. She wore that T-shirt home, but we had to order like hospital gowns that would button, could get them around the cast. We kind of got into a routine, what you did first. We had to figure that out, you know, which arm goes first and so forth and so on. She needed wound care on her chest because that was a raw wound, so we had to take care of that. She couldn't bathe, she couldn't wash her hair, she couldn't wash her hands clearly, she couldn't eat something like a sandwich that would take two hands. She was unable to open her medicine bottle, she couldn't, you know, physically, these are things, any limitation she couldn't do with her two hands. So I was dressing her, I was cleaning her, putting the toothpaste on her toothbrush, taking the cap off her deodorant, helping her step into her underwear, helping her step into her sweatpants, putting the hospital gown on, all of that kind of stuff she needed help doing.
So she wasn't even able to use the restroom alone at this time?
No.
And she wasn't able to shower for at least a month after, correct?
Yeah, it was a good month before she showered, yeah.
And even then, you would have to help her with all of that?
Correct.
And she wasn't able to drive during this time at all?
No, she wasn't driving.
And did she have medical appointments that she would have to go to?
She did. She had a lot of appointments. I took 2 weeks off work, and then her sister Hannah took time off after that to help get Abby to and from all the appointments and could, you know, still take care of her.
And tell the jury, are there still medical appointments that she's dealing with to this day?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Abby is driving now, but she still has, she's still not done with surgery. She had her most recent surgery, I think it was number 6, was in April. She recently had a follow-up for that, and we're still just kind of waiting. She has a plate in her hand still, and it's not healing the way they want. That April surgery was actually a bone graft. They took bone out of her right hip and put it in her hand, and that's what they're watching for. That's what they're waiting on. She has another appointment in December, so it's just kind of like this waiting game. So between now and December, she's just continuing to wear the brace as much as possible and go to the doctor in December, and at that point they'll decide if they're ready to remove the plate. If not, we're waiting more. Once all that's done, we still have more OT appointments ahead of her. So it's just kind of this never-ending.
And just so that for the jury, OT, occupational therapy.
Occupational therapy, right, where she'll learn how to use the, you know, the fine motor skills that she's lost with her left hand.
And describe your daughter's personality since January 6th of 2023.
Now, she's afraid a lot. Certain things scare her. Crowds, going to certain places she won't go to. Things I've never had to think about have been an issue for Abby. For example, we've had a couple of family, like baby shower kinds of things with balloons, and the first time one of those balloons popped, you know, it was traumatizing. For Abby, it was like being right back there. Nobody in the family ever thought twice about not having balloons there. You know, we don't think that way. We've never had to. But that's what Abby's world is now. Those things that you don't expect to trigger can trigger. Something else that happened fairly recently, we were going to go see a movie, and we even had the tickets. And the morning of the day we were going to go see the movie, Abby literally could not leave her house. She said, "I can't go. I don't want to go. There's a scene in that movie. I can't go."
Do you mind me asking what movie it was?
It was the film version of Hamilton. Okay. And I know there are a couple of dueling scenes in there. And I don't know if that's what she was referring to. That's what I think probably. but things I never would have thought about before. I'm learning to like consider what her world is like. You know, just being afraid of things or things happening without warning, that kind of bring her right back. She really has trouble staying in touch with people. People reach out to her via text or leave a voice message, and you know, she hears it, she reads it, she just cannot find the energy to reply or to commit or to, you know, call back or whatever it is. So that's been hard. I feel like she kind of is in a shell. She doesn't really have a purpose right now, where her job was the thing that centered her and fulfilled her and her way to make the world a better place. Abby's living from appointment to appointment, not really knowing what's next.
And how was she immediately after the hospital, when she was staying with you for those first couple months, with getting out of bed or trying to do things?
Abby, from that day, she has done everything the doctors have asked her to do, and she has really tried to get better. I mean, I applaud her, the way that she has just put one foot behind the other and just done what she needed to do to get better, to heal. She goes to therapy a couple times a week, to different therapists with different specialties. She's trying to get better. She's doing everything that she should be doing. But I see she's overwhelmed by it. I would say she's depressed.
Objection, Your Honor.
Okay. And
Yeah, I'm gonna any argument you want to make on that?
I'll ask her to, if Your Honor would allow, to describe the emotion, but you're not a doctor, so please be mindful not to.
I'm not diagnosing
We'll have someone
her.
else correct. But
Right.
does she seem sad or happy?
Hold on. So that's sustained.
Yes.
And striking the word depression. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. You may proceed now.
So try to describe her emotion.
Well, I can describe what I see. She has trouble getting out of bed sometimes. She has trouble setting goals, making decisions. She does not find joy in things she used to find joy in. She sleeps a lot. So those are things that I see.
And at this time, do you know what Abby's plans are moving forward with a career?
No, because she can't make plans. She doesn't know what her future is going to look like. Assuming the hand gets as good as it's going to get, and she finishes OT and all that, she's you know, in a lot of pain. It's painful.
And talking about that, she's had. Well, how's her right hand, the one that was not shot with the bullet?
Right, and her right
Your
hand.
Honor, I'm just objecting. We're getting into medical testimony from a layperson. These are things that Ms. Warner herself can describe. I've allowed this to go on for a fair amount of time, but I'm going to have to object.
You have a response?
And, Your Honor, I'm certainly not asking her to get into any medical conditions, but to describe, she's very familiar with her daughter. She's the one who's supporting her daughter and seeing the struggles and having to, you know, open containers and do certain things for her daughter. She certainly understands what her daughter's capabilities are. So I'm more asking for the capabilities that she can observe her daughter doing.
All right. I'm going to overrule it, and you're permitted to certainly testify to your observations of things.
Okay.
All right.
What Abby has told me is that her right hand, even though it's her dominant hand, because she's having to compensate and use her right hand more, that is often sore now as well.
Okay.
And you were asking about future plans. None that we've discussed. She has shared that she doesn't want to go back into the classroom, which I think it saddens me, but I totally understand. I think Abby was becoming a really good teacher. And so that does sadden me, but I don't know what her limitations are going to be and what kind of work she'll be allowed to do or be able to handle.
And is there anything else that you want to share with the jury about your daughter since the shooting?
I would share that Abby has never complained. Not once have I heard her complain about what's happened and what she's been going through. She's more worried about others. In fact, today she wanted to be here when I'm up here to support me, and that's who Abby is. Yeah.
Thank you. You'll answer any of the judge's questions or opposing counsel.
Cross-examination?
Just a few questions, Ms. Warner. Are you aware that your daughter's been to cosmetology school since the shooting?
Yes.
Okay, so there's some positive sides here. That was something she had been considering before this event, correct?
No, she always liked doing hair, but cosmetology was not something that she'd considered as a career, no.
To your knowledge?
To my knowledge, correct.
But she did complete a 1 year of cosmetology,
Right.
school, correct?
Mhm.
And she's become licensed as a cosmetologist.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
And she's also made a lot of media appearances. You talked about being out in the public. She's also made a lot of media.
I think she did two. One was in my home, and I think the other was at Diane's office.
She's been on the Today Show.
Right, they came to my home. It wasn't like out in the public.
It's putting yourself out in the public. Agree?
Sure.
And there's been a tremendous amount of community support for your daughter, correct?
I would say so, yes.
No further questions.
Any follow-up?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Is she excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And is she going to be recalled at any point?
Not from us, Your Honor, and speaking for Ms. Warner for a moment.
You've been listening in to the civil trial of Abigail Zwerner against the Newport News School District. Remember that she was shot by a 6-year-old student back in 2023. Though she has recovered, you are hearing the